turn is it? Okay. All right, we'll get started in just a second.
Hey, Jen, Mrs. Knapp? No, Scott. No.
Okay, are we ready? Okay, a lot of banging. Hello, everyone. I'd like to call to order the October 14th voting meeting of the Highland Park Board of Education. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the Highland Park Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting setting forth the time, date, and location to be submitted for publication to the Home News Tribune and Star Ledger and posted on the board's website at least 48 hours in advance of this meeting. Members of the public who wish to address the board will be given the opportunity to do so before the board adjourns for the evening. May we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Byer? Ms. Simoresti? Ms. Coleman?
Here.
Ms. Gowan?
Here.
Mr. Krieger?
Here.
Mr. Magaziner?
Here.
Ms. McFadden DiNicola?
Here.
Mr. Roslevich?
Here.
Mr. Woodward?
Here.
Wonderful. If anyone would like to join us, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance now. We don't have a flag, so why don't we all look in that direction? Let's face that way. Oh, there is a flag somewhere.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to take one moment for selfish reasons to see if I could get the password. Do you mind? Thank you so much. All right. Sorry to come in at the last second. Linda, have there been any communications apart from what's noted here on the agenda?
Not to my recollection.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now turn to the approval of the minutes. Last week there was no discussion of this. Does anybody have any discussion of our minutes of our meetings on September 16th?
Point of
and
order? Motion, second, and then discussion.
Oh, motion first? Yeah. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as shown in number 6 of our agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion of those minutes? Thank you, Linda. Okay, Linda, may we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Ms. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes, aye. Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden DiNicola?
Yes.
Mr. Roslevich?
Yes.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
Thank you. And now we'd like to go on to our student representative reports. Hello, guys. Thank you for being here.
So at the high school this week, we have Week of Violence Prevention, which starts today, October 14th. On Wednesday, October 16th, we have the PSAT. October 20th is the Deca Dash. October 31st is the Make-A-Wish Walk. And then our Spirit Week begins October 21st through the 25th. Monday is Pajama Day. Tuesday is Hawaiian Shirt Day. Wednesday is Unity Day, so we're all wearing orange. Thursday is Country Western Day. Friday is Color Wars. Our homecoming dance is Friday, October 25th, and our homecoming game is Saturday, October 26th at 2 p.m.
Over at the middle school, the Chromebook rollout was on October the 10th, and all middle school students received their device to use both at home and at school. They celebrated their week of respect, and each day students received a challenge that encouraged a sense of community and respect. The OWL leaders have been leading community circles during the OWL periods. All students have the opportunity to participate in the circle of understanding and acceptance. And here at Bartle, they celebrated School Violence Awareness Week and Red Ribbon Week, which was October 21st to the 25th. And then Monday, it was Let's Keep the Peace, so tie-dye clothing. Tuesday, it's a bright idea to be violence-free, so wearing bright neon-colored clothing. Wednesday, Unity Day, so orange as well. Thursday is Red Ribbon Day. And then Friday is wear Bartle blue to school.
At Irving, October 21st is their picture day.
That's all.
Great, thank you so much. Sorry to be, again, trying to make the internet work. Now it's time for our superintendent's report. Scott?
I have quite a report tonight.
All right.
I'll begin by having Miss Knapp in her first board rollout as principal. Board, come to the podium.
Woo!
Hang on. You know what? Go ahead, Miss Knapp. Why don't you talk a little bit about the students who were spotlighted tonight, and then I'll follow up.
Okay. Thank you and welcome. Welcome to Chloe and Mason, who we're honoring tonight. So Bartle School has been discussing the importance of being kind since the start of the school year. Every morning I give reminders about kindness, and the students are taught that even the smallest acts of kindness can make a huge difference. I'm honored to spotlight two of our Bartle Dolphins who go above and beyond in the kindness department, and they were recommended by their teachers for their kindness in their classrooms. Chloe is an exceptional student in her classroom. She goes above and beyond academically and socially in her classroom every day. She is continually looking for ways that she can help others and make them feel their best. She does small acts of kindness every day. Mason has been extremely kind to his classmates and goes out of his way to encourage students when they are upset or feeling alone. He often reaches out to his peers that he sees are alone and invites them to play with him. Let's celebrate our Bartle Dolphins for their kindness.
Wow. What a crowd.
It's an off night. At this time, I'm going to continue my report, but this would be the opportunity that the families who were just recognized step out if you don't want to stay for the entire night.
You're welcome to stay if you'd like, but it does sometimes get boring.
Unless you want to stay.
We'd love to have you.
We usually end our meetings at around 10:30 lately, so I don't know if you want to stick around.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Will do, thank you.
I'm going to move you guys over to the side. Good night. At this time, I'm going to slowly but surely turn the computer on and the projector and ask Miss Luxa, who's our Dean of Restorative Practices for the middle and high school, and her student RP leaders, come on up. I'm going to hand the mic off, and then I'm going to give No, I'm going to give Miss Lux the pointer because you wanted it. I'm not going to hold on to it. And here's the mic.
Oh, thank you. Let's go. Got it.
Yeah, so maybe we could move back there. Is that, yeah, that's fine.
Oh, yeah.
Better management, right? That's a little, I don't like the sitting in the first row of the theater.
Oh, Miss Lux, the big button. It's the bottom. Students and Miss Lux here tonight because they have kicked off.
Let him know he's not on battery.
I'm having one of those weird tech nights. They have kicked off the next level of restorative practices work by training together 54 students? 54 students in our middle school to lead circle talks. 20 minutes a day during the OWL period. The OWL period, I think, has finally gained some traction, and this is the opportunity for us to learn more about it. So I'm going to get to the computer and hand off the mic.
Thank you.
There's a night of technical difficulties. Yes. Yes. It did something to your computer.
Hi, do you hear me? Okay. Hi, thank you guys so much for, well, Dr. Taylor, thank you for inviting us to come and present. They worked so hard. And I know this is only, how many? We have like 6 out of 54, but they're very eager to present to you guys today. All right, so I want to talk about the vision and purpose of OWL Period. So last June, Ms. Brady, myself, and the school counselor, Mr. Lobianco, we sat down and we were doing a review of restorative practices in the middle school, the GLOWs, the GROWs of the program itself and what we do. We observed that there was a strong need for more proactive interventions, so that's where we decided to create the OWL Period itself. Before I go on to the next slide, I want to introduce our OWL leaders by name, so I'm going to pass the mic to you guys.
Hi, I'm Georgina Sanchez, and I'm in 8th grade. I'm Francesca Connolly, and I'm in 8th grade.
I'm Alana Belcher, and I'm in 8th grade. Alana Belcher.
I'm Natalie Evans.
I'm Henry Rosner.
And I'm Andrew Dalton.
Okay, so our philosophy is that every child deserves to feel connected to the Highland Park community. We believe developing strong communication skills in social environments is the key to community planning,
problem solving, and relationship building?
So we had the staff give input on who they wanted to nominate as student leaders, and we gave them like some criteria of what the role would look like. We had 54 students nominated, so those leaders were chosen to be facilitators of the student circles. Each marking period is devoted to one of the SEL competencies. I know that there are 5, so one marking period is going to mesh 2 together. But this marking period is devoted to relationship building. So the questions that we have designed are aligned with the SEL competencies and sub-competencies. So myself, Ms. Brady, and Mr. Lobianco, we meet, we discuss what the sub-competencies are, how we're gonna reach that within those questions. Eventually, the OWL leaders are gonna be helping us incorporate questions as well, just based on the vibe that they get from their circles.
Okay, so what is OWL period? OWL period is a 20-minute period in the middle of the day. So it builds a fun and trusting community amongst children in all different grades by asking questions that dive into relationship building and reflections in a circle with no physical barriers between us. And so even the OWL leaders, everybody's on the ground in a circle, so it kind of promotes a sense of equality. So when we need a break from the heavier questions we ask most days, we occasionally play games, tell jokes, and riddles. And so for the first few weeks of school, we did a few more of the games and less of the questions because we wanted the students to ease into answering these questions and feeling comfortable in the circle and building relationships and having fun and looking forward to this period.
So like I said, the staff nominated, everybody in the building was able to nominate anyone that they wanted. The leaders were excited to be chosen, and we met with them in June to announce that they were chosen. We gave them a letter to take home to their parents so their parents were aware of what was going on. And we connect, although, you know, there's 52 student leaders and it becomes a little, like I'm one person, I can't go in all 52 homerooms at the same time. We connect via Google Classroom. That's where they get important notifications, documentation, anything that they need to make the period successful. Also during that, in the Google Classroom, is where if they have questions for me, they can, you know, write it in the comment section. For Week of Respect, we added some of the components that we did during OWL period into that Google Classroom. So it's all in one place and it's really easy for them to access. There are other like reflective moments too, where we ask the students to come and meet us during their lunch period to give us feedback on, you know, what's going on in your OWL period, what do you need more support with, what are some successes, what are some things that we can improve on. So we're constantly getting feedback from the students. I just did a survey for the adults as well during like our last staff meeting, and we're reviewing that as well. So the training, what we did for the training, Fran is gonna talk about.
So the students were given an opportunity to complete a summer training during the summer to anticipate their responsibilities in the fall. So during the summer, the leaders that could, we met and we did training, and then we did it again in the fall, the first week of school, for the students who weren't there to also have the training. So the trainings include reviewing the OWL questions, because we have questions that we ask almost every day, so we just reviewed those. And then preparing for issues that might arise during student circles. For example, if a student brings up that they are harming themselves, harming others, or someone else is harming them, then we have to tell an adult. Otherwise, everything else that's said in the circle stays in the circle. And then developing a script for the first week of OWL period, and that is important because then we could know what we needed to say and touch base on, so the kids in the period were clear on what was going on. And then lastly, understanding what our marking period goal is and why it is so important, because we have a goal for each marking period, and we just talked about that.
This is a picture from the first week of school. So those students are all OWL leaders. So we do activities with them too, to make sure that they're practicing the activities that they have with their students or their, you know, their classmates. So the first week of school was strictly devoted to training. We wanted to make sure that they felt comfortable and prepared, because this is a big, you know, opportunity. for them. And that comes with some fears as well. So we wanted to make sure that they were as comfortable as possible. The student leaders delved into deeper questions themselves so they can feel comfortable themselves and they can go to each other for support as well. So these are a few pictures of the students preparing their scripts, asking the questions that are guided within the group as well. Aside from preparing the OWL leaders, we found that it was so important to prepare the students that are in the building. So myself, Miss Brady, and Mr. Lobianco, we went into the grade level gym periods, and we did an assembly on the first day of school in those periods. We explained to them also what the marking period goal was, why we're doing this, why is OWL period so important to us. And we let the students practice one game called 11, which they loved, and we also let them practice being a facilitator. So one individual from the group practiced being a facilitator of their own circle, and the students were also practicing questions that had to do with like OWL period. One of the questions was, what do they need from other students during this period? Which was really impactful. A lot of students had a lot of good feedback to give their own peers. So we did this, like I said, in every single gym period because we wanted to make sure that they were prepared for it too. So we understand that this is a new process for everybody, students and adults included. So we make sure that the adults interject when needed. It's all student driven. I always give the analogy that the students are in the driver's seat of this. So it's student driven, but if adult has to intervene, they do. We encourage the students to develop these relationships organically so that we understand that that takes time, it takes consistency, and it takes that ongoing support. So with that understanding, we're going to grow it to be, even more successful with the other marking periods to come.
We believe this period has given way for students to feel connected.
We believe that through activities and games, we are developing a stronger sense of community throughout the students and staff.
We believe providing a structure and environment of positive social interaction will overall benefit the school.
We believe that through the voices of our students, staff, and eventually parents, that this OWL period will provide spaces for community planning, problem solving, and relationship building.
Our OWL leaders are eager to share what they experience as leaders with other leaders so we can learn from each other. And our leaders also express glows and grows of the OWL periods with each other. We meet once or twice a month and just share with each other. And leaders come up with creative ways to bring their own personality into their own OWL periods. For example, I love riddles and puzzles, and I brought that into my OWL period, and they started team building, and they all connected better, and they all started sharing more. And leaders are also constantly asked to provide feedback and support staff, assist when needed. So my teacher doesn't really answer questions, but he does interject when students are not necessarily listening to me or my other
OWL. The one thing that I wanted the leaders to be able to share is their experience with OWL period. So does anyone want to share what their own personal experience has been?
Okay, so when I heard about restorative practices last year, I thought it was a great idea, but I didn't think it would turn into anything that would actually change our school. But then when I was asked to be an OWL leader, the first I've ever heard of this OWL program, in training, I realized that this could actually really affect the relationships between all the grades in our school, because they weren't there as strong as they are now. Like when I was in 6th grade, I wasn't really talking to the 8th graders besides my sister. But after doing this in the first few weeks of OWL and how much we improved from our first day, I really think that this isn't just restorative practices, it's building our communities between everyone in our school, and especially in our OWL homeroom, it's been really successful.
Okay, so in my OWL period, there's a lot of kids that I knew didn't really talk too much, and we got them to express their feelings and emotions throughout questions and games.
In my OWL period, at the very beginning of the school year, it wasn't that fun. The students were coming into the class and they weren't taking it that seriously, and they would just answer the question with one word and then pass it on, and then the person next to them would just say the same answer. But even within the first 3 weeks, the OWL period, kids were coming into the OWL period and they were answering the questions more seriously, and they were giving sentences and not just one word.
Guys, you are amazing. Can we give them a round of applause, please?
I have a question for you, Miss Luxa. I think I know the answer. Well, it's about this, obviously, how it got to this. So, how did you discover this model? Did you visit a school and see it, or did you read something about it?
I don't know. I think I really just wanted to see the students have more of an opportunity to be in charge of this. Restorative isn't just me as the dean. Restorative is them. So, giving them the tools, I think that's really what I wanted. I've been to schools where I've seen classrooms that are run by a teacher and they talk about restorative justice, and I love that. I want to give, these kids are fantastic. These students are student leaders. And Natalie's idea for the riddles, that came, we now do riddles in other OWL periods only because Natalie had discussed that during one of our debriefings. So myself and Mr. Lobianco, we heard how successful it was in her OWL period. It really was. And she had students that, were in 6th grade coming up to her randomly, right? In the middle of the day saying, come on, tell me what the answer to the riddle is. I have to know. And it, I know it sounds silly, it's just a little riddle or a little game, but it's getting them to be more comfortable. And then through that is where they have those deeper conversations. So I don't know, I just see what we have here in Highland Park and how incredible our students are, and that's kind of really where I came up with that.
I have another answer that just came to mind. I realized this is Ms. Lux's second full year, right? You're entering your second full year as the dean?
My second full year, my
Third total year, because the first year was a part-time position, and 2 years ago we made it a full-time position. And I remember having a conversation last year when you said, it's very difficult for me to be changing the culture in 2 schools, right? Especially when I have students who are on their way out the high school. Why don't I start changing the culture at the middle school from the ground up with the students inside out, so that when these guys who are our future warriors, high school warriors, go up to that point, the culture's there. So I think that was also one of your rationales for this. Let me open up for questions. If the board has any, I'm going to give the mic back to Ms. Luxa.
I just want to say this is phenomenal what you guys are doing. You made my night, and I'm sure my colleagues will probably feel the same. Yeah, I believe that you guys are doing everything that you stated that you believe you're doing. So continue, stay strong, push forward through your grows and glows, and continue to support each other. I know that the work that you're doing is so crucial to building community in all of our schools, really. It's going to spread like wildfire. I see that it already is. So please continue doing that with all your, 54 of you guys?
54.
All together, amazing. My question is, how does this work in terms of the teachers in the OWL period? I know that you mentioned the teachers are really hands-off. Have they been provided any sort of training or support with how to support the circle if there needs to be some sort of adult intervention and support?
Who wants to answer that? Me? Okay. Sorry, I want to give them the opportunity to answer if they want. They treat it like a homeroom, right? So what that means is that they have to be the responsible eyes and ears. So they do have the responsibility to make sure that everything is okay, that they are okay. Like what Natalie said, like I'm going to give Mr. Cote a shout out right now. If she's looking at Mr. Cote like, hey friend, can you help me out? He interjects, or he like pulls a student aside. So that's really what their responsibility is. If a teacher wants to join in, like Andrew, in your OWL period, your teacher joins in sometimes, right? Yeah, so Miss Botvinnik joins in, and she enjoys it. So it's really up to the teacher if they want to join in or not, but we don't want to push too much of the responsibility on the teacher. But like I said, their responsibility is to make sure that they are okay and that they feel safe and comfortable.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Besides that, I'm going to wrap up then, if nobody has any other questions, and send these folks on home. Thank you for coming out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night. I'll see you all in school tomorrow. That's it. You can head out unless you want to stick around. Thank you. I'm going to switch gears and wrap up my superintendent's report by just providing a few updates, since we had quite a bit of public comment at the last meeting, specifically about the music program at the middle school. So, by the way, we will be, Personnel Chair Gowan, we will be striking the resolution for Mr. Martino's resignation. He's decided to rescind his resignation. So we will not be in the hunt for a orchestra teacher after all. Okay, so bear with me, you can see all my files. What I would like to do is first explain how we got to a better place when it comes to the middle school music program. So after receiving a lot of input, expression of concerns, I took this issue to a group called the Central Leadership Team, which is actually very interesting unto itself. In a couple of months, we're going to have Saul Rubenstein from Rutgers University visit us. Saul is working with Susan Doozy, other members of HPEA leadership, me, a couple of our leaders, principals, and members of the board, including Mr. Krieger, through a series of workshops. We're part of the Rutgers University Labor Management Cohort. There's only 7 districts, I understand, that are involved in this cohort. So anyway, as a result of this work, we put together something called the Central Leadership Team. It's a group of board members, building leaders, myself, and members of the HPEA leadership team who come together every couple of months to resolve critical issues. This is the group that helped get us to promoting equity, technology equity, and the one-to-one initiative. Well, we tackled the music program at the middle school last week and came away resolving that we would task Ms. Brady, the assistant principal, and whoever else could assist. We had Mr. Krieger provide his left brain methodological mind to our work, and we resolved to reinstall a 40-minute music period. And by the way, a letter went out to all the middle school parents and guardians of students who are in the music program. So they were informed of that this morning. So we have been able to restore music very, very close to the 42-minute period we had last year to 40 minutes every other day. And I'm going to show you some schedule samples in a second so we all have a better clear handle on what a music student's day would look like. Our 6th and 7th grade students will take their music course, orchestra, band, or choir during the, it's going to draw from the PE cycle period. I'm going to show you what that looks like. And the OWL period. And the 8th graders will take from the OWL period as well as 20 minutes from lunch. So here's what the schedule would look like, for instance, for a 6th grader. A 6th grade student, this is a schedule of a 6th grade student who has music on this particular day, as we've done in the past. Music's going to run every other day, not every day, for 40 minutes now this year. So this is a day in which, on which the 6th grade music student has music. And the student will take all the core academic classes. No time is being taken from academic classes. However, when the student hits period 6, the student will leave at 12:29. So you can see the time is being taken away from this period once every other day, 20 minutes. We'll get a 3 minutes passing time to go to what would have been OWL period but will now be music, so that this student's music schedule comes out of this section. Part of period 6, this period is a longer period for students who don't have music. They'll leave early, which of course means that they miss part of their cycle or PE period. We did do the numbers and verify that we are in compliance with the Department of Education's requirement that students get a certain number of hours per week for gym for PE. By the way, that's the only subject area that has a stipulated minimum number of hours you have to have in your schedule per week. A 7th grade student similarly will have his or her music period during OWL, so the music student will not have OWL once every other day. Every other day will not have OWL period, and will cut into cycle gym, in this case, the beginning of cycle gym, so that the time taken for OWL and the time taken away from the cycle gym period equals 40 minutes. An 8th grade student's schedule is a little different in that we didn't have a clean back-to-back series of periods of cycle and OWL, so we had to do something else. So what we ended up doing was taking some time out of lunch. So as you can see in this case, the student still has 26 minutes for lunch. I mean, I had 20 minutes when I was a student, so I'm hoping 26 minutes will be sufficient. And again, this is every other day, it's not every day. And then we'll cut through the OWL period, again, to equal 40 minutes. It's not perfect, it's a short-term solution. We did agree as a central leadership team as well to come up with a long-term solution starting in March, April. We're going to be enlisting the music teachers, bringing them in, probably have a group of parents involved as well to help us create a better schedule going into next year on a much earlier pace. We usually don't do the schedule until June, July at the middle school. I'm going to try to push that back to April, May. So that's the middle school music program situation at this time through June.
Scott, might I add just one thing?
Feel free.
Not sure if this is working. So in addition to meeting in the future to review the music program at the middle school, high school, band, orchestra, choir, etc., there have been questions over the years about the equipment. And so one of the things we're going to talk about not only is the schedule and perhaps having the schedules in the high school and middle school work more together, so it's easier to schedule, given that the teachers of those classes actually report to the high school. But there is the question of the equipment. The equipment's old, some of it's broken, and it's something that has to do with the finance and the finance committee. So we discussed, and we've discussed it before, doing something about that as well to upgrade the equipment, perhaps through leasing, as we did with the computer equipment, but doing something to make the much more to make the program better. So I just wanted to add that.
And we're at a good juncture to do that because we don't start the budgeting process until November, December. So we're on a good track for that. I do want to switch gears again, quickly mention to the community and the board that I had a stakeholder meeting last Thursday night. It was the first this year about the strategic plan. And I thought you'd be interested to see some of the questions, and then I have another slide that presents some of the ideas that came up. Obviously, the middle school schedule came up. At that point, we hadn't resolved exactly what we were going to do. This was last Thursday night. The second question is one that I'm going to be speaking with Ms. Luxa about regarding reactive circles. Ms. Luxa, Mr. Richardson, who's in the back, I appreciate you being here, our new high school assistant principal, and Mr. Lassiter and I have been in conversations. We have another one coming up about the in-school suspension program and how we're revamping that. This question will come into play in our next discussion. One of the immediate answers I gave the folks who came last Thursday night that speaks to this question about reactive circles is, well, as Ms. Luxa has pointed out, we do not require students to take part in reactive circles. They have to be wanting to be part of that process. So there might be times when we will offer a reactive circle to a student who did harm to somebody else or had harm done to him or her, but doesn't want to participate. The second to last question is a really good one, very insightful conversation about how we do have several students who we see, parents, myself, I'm a resident in the community, so I see a lot of our kids out and about who sometimes are outside for very long periods of time and looks like they need something to do or some way to keep them busy. So we were talking about just brainstorming some ideas about how we could perhaps provide recreation equipment and things for our kids to do if they come to the schools after school on the weekends. Today I was walking into my office and two students came right up to me and asked me if I had a basketball in my office. And I thought to myself, I should have like a big basket because there are always kids. I'm always here at night and there are always kids out there of all kinds of things. So I'm thinking about doing that. And then finally, a question that I'm going to be posing to Michelle Rodriguez, our new supervisor of curriculum instruction for humanities, one that I hadn't addressed before in all my years working with Readers and Writers Workshop, and that is whether or not, as some literature proposes, the expectations we have for our kindergartners, some of our youngest children in the system, is negatively impacting their self-esteem. One of the members of the group is very well versed in this field of literacy early childhood, and so I'm going to be taking this up further to examine more closely what our kindergarten curriculum looks like, in particular the literacy program. And then these were just some ideas that came up, which I also would like to explore. The top one is very interesting, and one that I haven't talked to Ms. Brady or Ms. Asemiye yet. When we considered the redesign of the middle school math program, which is going to have us compressing the two levels in 6th grade, we recognize that there is the potential for there, if we had multiple teachers teaching this class, for there to be a divergence in the way we're interacting with the kids, the rigor by which we're exposing them to, the standards by which we're holding them to. So somebody suggested we try to have one teacher teach all the 6th grade students so that there's one voice, one standard, one message, which is driven by professional development of the curriculum. And then we were all turned on to a site that just turned 50 years old, by the way, Project Zero. It's actually an initiative out of Harvard, but the site presents most of the material that they've been putting out. Because our next few months are going to be action-packed for my report, I've got a lot of people coming, visitors. I thought I would just give you a little sense of what's around the bend. November 11th, which is our next meeting, is going to have somebody who I've been interacting with. I wouldn't say I've been working with quite yet because it's more like discussions. Elaine Davis, who I'm enlisting to help us do a better job recruiting and retaining our Black, Hispanic, and Asian educators. I just actually generated a demographic, which I'm going to show the Equity and Excellence Committee at our next meeting, that shows the ethnic, racial, and national breakdown of our educators and then compare that to the student demographic information. I pulled that in August. And a couple of things surprised me, a couple of things didn't, but we're going to start looking at that more closely. We're also going to talk a little bit about the district's sustainability efforts. We were recognized again for bronze certification, and this year are receiving an award along with the borough for having collaborated with them to promote sustainability. We're going to get that award down in Atlantic City at the school board's convention. So I'll talk a little bit about that, and then I'll provide an update on the middle school redesign come the next meeting. So that concludes my report. Unless you have any questions or comments.
We get to public comment. Everybody else can feel free to ask questions. For now, we will move on to our board committee reports. Let's see. Our first committee is curriculum and instruction. Michelle? And I should point out actually to the public that this is our voting meeting, so we already discussed most of the items on the agenda last week, so we're not going to go through every agenda item in excruciating detail. And most of our board committees, I believe, met, except for Monique's, I think, before the last meeting, so we're not going to have lengthy committee reports, unless anybody wants to add something that they didn't add before. And Monique, I think, will have a new report. Oh, okay. Okay. Michelle, curriculum and instruction.
So I'll just review, refresh everyone's memory. We were lucky enough to have Dr. Nicosia at our meeting.
Oh, the mic, is it working? It's not really loud.
Hello? Okay. We met on October 3rd in the superintendent's office. We were joined by Dr. Nicosia, and Ms. Boudin was there, but also to just observe. So Dr. Nicosia gave us a general review of the summer curriculum writing work that had been done. Just to refresh everyone's memory, it was generally a math rewrite. A lot of work had been done in the high school from our math teachers, Ms. Finklin, Ms. Powell, Ms. Wyatter, and they did get to have some PD before the curriculum writing was done. Let's see. We also had discussion of the scheduling issues for the music program at the middle school, and we were given assurances that Mr. Werner and Ms. Chambers would be sitting in on the hiring committee, but now I guess there's no hiring committee for the new orchestra teacher. So, but they will be included in future discussions about schedule changes. When Dr. Taylor revises the schedule in tandem with the middle school, high school for next year. The humanities were raised as an area of concern. So we did talk about that, as humanities are given the respect that they deserve in our schedule. The health curriculum was discussed. We did talk about the issue of consent being included, especially in kindergarten and the primary grades through 12th grade. And I think that it was something that we discussed about our health curriculum, including that. And also there was some discussion about separating our health classes by gender. And that was not a conversation that we came to a conclusion about on the part of the middle school staff, but we were waiting to hear back. But I know that we had talked about that previously, best practices and such. So also we discussed middle states accreditation. Mental health education in Highland Park is going to be the focus of a Star Ledger article. Mental health education in Highland Park schools, I should say, more specifically. And the Chromebook rollout, we were discussing on having we requested having some sort of a revisit, a check-in, I guess, by November or December to make sure that the Chromebook rollout was going well, and it was a positive addition to our district. But of course, we are still waiting on all of that to come back to us. And then the agenda included let's see. I guess it was just the school trips, and there was some discussion on the school trip at Bartle. So I was looking forward to hearing more about that from Dr. Taylor. And the other things I'm trying to remember on the agenda because I didn't take a copy.
Oh, here's the agenda. Just to be clear, the new, the bold-faced items on the agenda are ones we did not previously discuss. So it looks like on yours, there are no bold-faced items.
No,
Sure.
right. So last agenda will suffice, I guess. So yeah, the field trip requests are item number 2, which included the Bartle trip in discussion. The committee report was number 1. So, I'm on the, okay, so the revised, right, so the revised copy is number 1, field trips, no, I'm sorry. And then number 2 is the approval of the Conversation Cafe fall dates, the additional date of December 5th, and then the approval of the STEM curriculum for the school year 1920, which has the math curriculums that I updated everyone on. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there questions and concerns?
A very quick question. Could you refresh on the middle states accreditation, what that is about? I kind of remember somebody saying maybe it's not worth the $1,000 or $1,500, whatever it is. Is that true? And can we do a little research to make sure that that's true before we walk away from it?
As promised, I'm doing that research now. One thing I did is I surveyed all my colleagues around the county, and I have a folder of their feedback. It's mixed. Some districts have moved away from it because they just don't feel it's worth their time. It's not as much the money as it is time. Mr. Lassiter's feeling is that it's redundant. It's something that we're already doing as part of our strategic planning process, and but I'll come back to you when I'm prepared with more research.
I know in our discussion at the committee meeting that Rob Braslevich brought up the issue of accreditation being something that may or may not affect graduates if they should enter a specific program.
Yeah, actually, I brought that up at the meeting, and so I had Ms. Hayes, our senior high school guidance counselor, do some research, and she's not hearing that it makes a difference one way or the other, but I would like to reach out to a resident who's also one of the admissions officers at Princeton University to get her take on it. Just haven't done that yet.
Yeah, I don't know if it makes a difference, but maybe, contacting Middle States Accreditation or the organization itself about the accreditation directly and having them sell us on it might be the fastest, easiest way.
Well, I've already had some, so one of the superintendents in the county is on the board for Middle States. They're based in Philadelphia. So he's already come out and tried to market the product to me. So I don't know, I'm a little, I'll go on record saying I'm a little skeptical.
No, obviously skepticism is important in this debate, but I think that if they are promoting it, they would best, answer the question of whether or not it would affect anyone's credential once they graduate. Like, what does it prevent you from going into, for example, like a vocational school? Does it prevent you from, they would know specifically, and I guess we could fact check them directly, but I absolutely appreciate you, looking into it with your other superintendents.
Yeah, I would just add to that, and perhaps even consulting with additional college level, admissions officers to get a more of a breadth of feedback. That would be one of my areas of concern as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Maybe some community college places, Rutgers, Princeton, some other community colleges, vocational post
I'm just going to cold call
K-12.
some admissions offices as well and get a take on that. I don't think they have any, unless there is some collusion happening behind the scenes, I don't think there's any reason why they wouldn't be honest with me about the take on its worth. So I'll follow up.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I had a quick question. Scott, I know you were going to be working on, I think, an audit of our classes to see if we were, in fact, tilted in favor of STEM versus humanities. Is that ongoing?
I have that intact, and I shared
Okay.
that with the curriculum committee.
You did, oh, okay, all right, I
So-
just wanted to point out that that was,
Yeah, and I have it actually right here, but I have to say that this is just a quantitative list.
Okay.
This is not showing us what is actually being, like, so, for example, at Irving and Bartle and other places, there's a list of electives. These may or may not be actually active, it's just, it's a working list of what is available.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But it's not necessarily what's available. So, but it does give you some sense, like quantitatively, here's the humanities, it's lots, here's the STEM, not so much. But it's a very simplified expression of what we offer. So I'll hand you that.
So maybe the next step is to go through and see, this year, which of these are being offered. Could we do that? I mean, I think Michelle is saying that perhaps some of the classes on here are theoretically available, but not necessarily actually happening.
Yes, right, theoretically is the right,
Yeah,
right
so
way
perhaps-
to say it. So in practice, what is being offered?
So perhaps film, film studies might be on here for high school, and we're not actually offering it. Maybe we could get a sense for this year, 1920. Would that be okay? Okay, thank you very much.
Perhaps the curriculum committee could put that on an agenda for a future month.
That'd be
I
great.
think November is pretty busy, and December might be, but a little bit of a deeper study into, and by then Michelle will be on as our humanities supervisor. Perhaps we can you could meet with the two supervisors and with Dr. Taylor and try to come up with more of a qualitative study
So I
of
just-
how we're doing in those areas.
Absolutely, that's a good idea. Also, I just wanted to make it clear that we did discuss, plans for our future curriculum meetings. So our next curriculum meeting will be joined by the Irving principal to discuss the Irving play-based curriculum. And then the meeting following that, we will have Ms. Rodriguez, our new humanities supervisor, joining us. So everyone knows if you have questions to promote, or if you'd like to show up, that would be great too. Absolutely, thank you.
Wonderful. Scott, Michelle mentioned the Chromebook distribution and how you might be giving us a presentation at some point on how it's going. I just wanted to inquire, I know we talked a lot about how many students don't have reliable access to Wi-Fi. They can go to Dunkin' Donuts or the library, but not at 10 o'clock at night, probably. Is PD scheduled to sort of help teachers learn how to have most of the stuff work offline? I know that there are apps which are difficult to use offline. Padlet, for example, is used in English classes and art classes. I'm not sure if that can...
So the entire election day, the kids have off. We are going to facilitate our second ed camp,
Okay.
which I think I told you is like we all organically come together and share best practices. The entire day is focused on instructional technology.
Okay.
And how, especially at the upper grades, how to leverage the one-to-one initiative, and we are focusing on that issue.
Okay, wonderful. So is Ed Camp, does that involve multiple schools around the state? I know sometimes Ed Camp is a...
That's a great question. Now, Ed Camp is like a
Or is it just for us?
trademarked way of producing a day of professional development.
Right.
It's a nonprofit organization called edcamp.org that runs this thing. And basically, anybody who wants to run one can do so locally. And so I actually did one about social emotional learning last
Right,
year.
I
And
remember.
so they pop up wherever people would like to run them.
Right.
But they do it, it's all homemade, it's all grassroots, done locally.
So is it just for our teachers?
Yes,
This
correct.
one, it's not, okay, so it's specifically about our one-on-one and how our students, okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, because what I'm surprised to see is that while I know that the Google Suite can generally be used offline, not for collaboration, but for individual students' projects, is there are many apps that our teachers are using on a regular basis that are going to be difficult to use offline. And again, we're running into the problem where it's tough. Teachers are going to have to probably have some support on what students can reliably do at home if they don't have Wi-Fi. Because unfortunately, we were not able to make Wi-Fi part of our one-on-one distribution program. Okay, right now, that's not happening. So so that needs to happen soon. The teachers need to understand what is and is not appropriate to give as homework. Okay, I don't want I don't want that to sort of drag on for as long as it might have dragged on with the computers. Okay, excellent, great. One other question. Oh, Michelle had mentioned mixed gender health ed classes. I thought that we had already made progress on that, and that our health classes in middle school were all gender. Are they in fact split gender?
The only classes that we split currently are when puberty is discussed.
Okay.
And I told the curriculum committee that I'm going to research the practices that are prevalent and what people are saying is the way to go in that area. I will be very frank with you. There are concerns that have been expressed by some parents. That has been relayed to me from teachers, that their children come home, middle school age, and don't feel comfortable sharing in a mixed gender environment when they're talking about puberty. So rather than just make a blanket assertive statement, directive, no, I'm sorry, but we're going to be making mixed gender classes when we discuss puberty, I'd like to do the legwork to look at it further.
I certainly respect that. I do think that ultimately we're going to have to move in that direction in order to accommodate sort of the basic needs of our kids who are transgender and who are non-binary. And perhaps what that means is there's going to need to be like sort of time for individual consultation between students and teachers, or small group consultation, so that when it comes to the sharing part, all students can be in an environment where they feel comfortable. But I don't see that it's okay for us to say, all right, everybody declare whether you're a boy and go over there, if we're also trying to sort of have all gender bathrooms and have a trans policy. That's not...
Being fully immersed in the world of gender identity and the policies and protocols around that, trust me, it's right there.
Are we making some accommodations now for students who identify as non-binary? Are they just...
I don't know what we've done in the past, but we haven't focused on that yet this year. We have a couple of months to play with until we go into that unit, so
okay.
I'll let you know.
I'd like to hear that even before we perhaps come up with a general curricular strategy, that we come up very soon with strategies for our specific students.
I agree 1,000%.
Okay. Even if that doesn't involve like deciding what we're going to do for everybody. Okay. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. I know you... Go ahead.
If I could just say,
yes, sure.
I don't know how many months ago in curriculum we did discuss what other districts were doing as far as separating students out. If you recall, Monique, we did discuss, and we did have, like Dr. Taylor spent time checking in with all of the different districts in Middlesex County, and the vast majority of them had classes, health classes that of all different kinds that were mixed gender, and were not separating the kids out by I don't even know what to call it because it's not gender. I mean body part, let's call it, right? So I think that we've had this discussion before, and so I just want to be clear that I don't know that there's any confusion about what best practices are. I do think that there is maybe a couple different
Well, I think what's
disagreements
a
about
little
it.
different here is that when I spoke to the middle school PE teachers and I asked them if they facilitate mixed gender health classes, their immediate answer was yes. Just as I believe my peers' immediate answer when I asked that question was yes. What I would like to do is follow up with my peers and ask them if there are cases in which they might separate gender, perhaps when teaching about puberty.
This doesn't have to do with particular staff members that don't want to teach mixed gender.
My takeaway from them is they have received concerns, not so much complaints, about the inability of their kids to feel comfortable sharing in certain environments where they're talking about what are sensitive topics at that age. But I'd be glad to do the research, and it's definitely something which I'll tackle before we go into it next spring.
That's great. It does sound like the
We got
research has
beyond
been
this in,
done.
like the 1970s.
Like the research has been done. So I think in terms of like what best practices are and what I take very seriously that some parents are concerned. So it seems like some accommodation might need to be made for sharing sessions or for students who are uncomfortable. I mean, I know my students would never share about puberty in any circumstance in school, regardless of whether they were in an all-boys group or an all-girls group or a mixed-gender group. So I'm wondering if perhaps this issue can be dealt with sort of a small scale specific way. I mean, most of this is not going to be sharing. Most of this is informational. So I'd like to see that we are intending to make progress toward consistently doing mixed gender classes. I think that's what we've discussed many times.
Can we get a reporting on this in our next?
Yeah.
report? We really need to, I feel like it's a follow-up sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I feel like we've been like, this is like a wheel that keeps on moving. Every year we were like, oh boy, the old mixed gender health classes.
Just to identify what are the issues here, what's happening, what are the areas of concern other than or in addition to what you're saying or more in-depth
I mean, is this
understanding? There's things here that don't seem clear to me based on our previous meetings and discussions, so.
Yeah.
Because I do recall, I mean, both of us probably remember very well that we did talk about this, and we did an audit, frankly, of Middlesex County, and the vast majority were doing mixed gender health classes. So,
I'm sure they have the same parents and students who have feelings of discomfort, right?
But let's address what we need to address, and I think we're just not clear on what's happening.
And I'd also like to hear from students, like, what is their experience of it? Is it different at the high school? Is it different at the middle school in Bartle? So we do need to think about the fact that it might be a personal issue. I don't know that it is, but.
It seems like puberty is going to be middle school or maybe late Bartle.
Late Bartle, maybe, I don't know.
So if we're having puberty is the issue, then yeah.
So when is a reasonable from
We have a student here, my goodness.
Two of
from
them.
a Teen Pep standpoint, all of our classes and like we talk about like sex education and like puberty and like what we go through, it is mixed gender, and it just shows like the students are going to have to be mature and handle it. So I think them coming in as 8th graders ready to talk about it will be useful for people who have to teach them, but also make them more knowledgeable at things that they will have to learn eventually. So I think we should have them.
Scott, could we get a report on this at the next board meeting? Just because I think a lot of us have a perception that every year we're cranking out the same questions about the mixed gender
Sure,
health
bump it up
classes.
the priority list.
That'd be wonderful, yeah. I think we're spending so much time talking about it every year. And before you got here, too, I think we've just this is a horse that
I'll
we
make a
beat
note under
every-
old business on the next agenda to follow up.
Very old business. Yeah.
I think that we did.
Not necessarily involving you, but
In our
this
committee
board
meeting,
has
I
talked
just-
about it a lot.
We have, but I just want to say also that in our committee meeting, we did talk about the fact that, we don't want to change policy according to a few parents that may or may not have some misunderstanding or some, regard for their own personal beliefs. We cannot change the way that we do things. Best practices are best practices. If a few parents don't like it, I know that as a parent, I've always been asked to opt out of the things that you don't like. So I think that's a decision, it's up to every parent. They need to make their family decision. But as far as best practices go, I think that, Teen Pep is a good example. Like, that's what you're told in Teen Pep, and I think that that's what I've always heard, and I do think that that's the direction that our district is moving, so that we do not exclude gender non-binary students, like
Or binary
non-binary
trans
students.
students.
Either way,
Yes.
it's just, whether or not you are ever in a relationship in the future, you do have your own body that you need to know how that functions, and you may or may not have a partner who has a human body that needs to take care of it. It's just kind of frustrating. I don't mean to sound like I'm, I don't know, just getting frustrated, I think, with the idea that we have had this discussion several times, as you said, Anne, and that we continue to butt up against this kind of resistance.
At the same time, I do want to emphasize that, of course, we take all of our parents' concerns very seriously.
Absolutely.
And our students' concerns. And we don't know what those concerns are right now. I mean, it may be that people are resistant. It may be that people have, really legitimate, serious concerns. So what we need to know is, what are those concerns, and how can we accommodate those without having to separate all of our puberty-related classes? Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Michelle, and everybody else. Okay. Does that exhaust our curriculum and instruction? All right, moving along. Finance. Oh, okay. That's not on the agenda, Scott. Finance and facilities.
Yeah.
That would be
So-
Mark.
So I would say you're a very hard act to follow with that discussion.
Well, that's
because
much more interesting
I
than-
have very,
Cafeteria
straight,
information?
that's right,
Yeah, okay,
cafeteria
all
and
right.
bill lists.
There we go.
So we have a handful of new items from last week. We have a bill list from August 15th, 2 items, 1 and 2, August 15th through 16th through September 15th, coming to approximately $1.5 million in expenditures. We have approval of our athletic bill list, which is September 16th, October 15th, which is rather small. It's $4,637. And we have the cafeteria bill list for September through 21st through October 4th, and the amount of $19,146.04. So those are new. Those are the standard bill lists that we see every month. We have in item 7, we have one new professional services person, and that's John Holm, who's a well-known filmmaker and who's going to be doing, as he's done before, digital storytelling fall and spring, and that's budgeted at $7,000. So that'll be up for approval. And then the last item we discussed last time, but this is an actual approval, and that's LED lighting for the middle school. This is starting with the middle school, and then we'll be going on to the other schools, costing $9,426.76. And this is eligible for 100% rebate from the New Jersey Smart Start program. So this will cost the district nothing, which is fantastic.
Thank you, Linda.
I
assume you're responsible for figuring that out.
I had a very small part of it.
You are very smart.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
On John Hume, on the digital storytelling, in the second square there, it says fall and spring term 2018.
Oh, it should say 19.
Well, is it
1920. 1920.
Right.
So when I, yes.
Yes.
So when I move that, let's assume that it's 19 and 20. Thank you. We just go right over it.
Rah! So, all right. Any other questions or concerns about finance? Rob Oslevich? No? Nothing? I knew there was something.
In terms of the LED system that's being installed, have we looked at and figured out whether the quality of the LEDs are going to be sufficient and not be a source of, just hearing the idea that an LED is great, but just going back to, like if you buy the wrong LED, you buy the wrong complex fluorescent, it's the wrong color, and you're just throwing it out later on. So I just want to, I assume that what we're getting is going to be of decent quality so that we're not kicking ourselves later on.
Well, I assume that our professionals have looked at it, like Mike O'Donnell and Linda and her
I'll
staff.
confirm with him.
Okay.
about that.
Thank you.
We got the cheap pink ones, right? That bathe the entire school in like a pink ultraviolet light. Is that? Yeah.
They have to be in compliance with the program as far as what type of bulbs they allow, but I'll make sure that they are complementary and to our needs.
Okay. Given that it's a government
Wonderful.
program, they probably require over-engineered lights, and and over-engineered toilet seats at much greater expenses. So hopefully that's what we're getting.
We'll soon find out. Thank you very much. Personnel, that's me. Almost everything was already discussed. Number 1, we have our source for teachers substitutes that we formally approve. Number 9, I'm going to move that we approve Ms. Brady as the interim principal at the middle school. That's with a prorated raise per month solely during the time that she is interim principal at, it's not very much, it's $239 a month. So that's number 9. Number 11, we have a change in start date for our middle school nurse. A couple other changes. There's nothing here that's not self-explanatory. Do we have Mr. Martino on here? Do we have the rescission of Mr. Martino's resignation on the agenda?
When you make the motion to approve approve the resolutions, you're going to want to strike, I think it's number 6?
Number 6.
Oh, it's number 6.
So
I'm
we'll
sorry.
strike number 6 in the motion.
Yeah, he's already indicated formally to me that he'll be rescinding his resignation.
Okay, and that's formal and binding as far as...
Not until you approve it.
From his end, it is formal
Until
and
we
binding?
not approve his resignation.
Oh, I see. Got it. All right. Number 6, I'm going to move that we strike it. Excellent. All right. 1 second. Thank you for pointing that out, guys. Okay, we have a lot of new staff appointments. They're pretty self-explanatory. Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee staff people who will be spending time working on that. Title I academic coaches, independent studies at the high schools, number 43. Oh, this is great. Multivariable calculus. Mr. Moore is doing an independent study. Mr. Lee, probability and statistics. Awesome. Some toileting supplement. Compensation, handle with care. All right. I believe that exhausts the personnel agenda. Are there any questions or comments?
I just want to point out number 22 is also struck.
Oh. Sorry, let me page laboriously back through here. Yes, number 22 is also struck. It looks like we're going to have Ducky instead of Ms. McManus-Smith at the Conversation Cafe.
Does it say Ducky?
It does not say Ducky. It says, excuse me, Ms. Jewel Soraka. Ducky. Known to us as Ducky. Yes. Okay, yep, that's it. And that means we will move on to, is it equity or policy? Policy. Mark, would you like to?
Well, we had 2 or 3 changes to the open lunch guidelines. Thank you, Rob, for pointing them out. I found one, thanks to someone in the audience last time, and I've forgotten who it was, who mentioned that we didn't have the gender titles, and that were not right, and that was changed immediately. Rob pointed out a couple of errors in it. Other than that, I've had no feedback from anybody on any of these. We've gone over these so many times. Hopefully, we pass them now for first reading and then next time for second reading.
2 more chances.
Yep. Right, so we have another month for everybody to read these, review them. I particularly would point out the eligibility of resident, non-resident students. That's very complex. It required a lot of work in the committee to review the different sections of what makes you eligible to go to school in Highland Park, or in any district. And it is definitely worth reading and reviewing because we really want to get that right.
My memory, if it serves, is that we didn't add anything Highland Park specific.
Correct.
We merely attempted to make the statutory and regulatory requirements clear.
Correct.
So no one should feel that we are out there making random decisions about who is allowed to attend our schools.
Correct.
Yeah. But it was poorly written, and I believe you had to do quite a bit of work to make it
I did.
comprehensible. Yes.
It was not readable as we got it from the
service.
So
the anonymous service.
It was comprehensively rewritten.
Yes, thank you.
Along with several of these.
Commentary from anyone? Okay, let's move on to equity and excellence. Mooney?
I have nothing to report, sadly. We will be meeting next week, and I assume that we'll have a lot to report after that meeting.
Wonderful, looking forward to it.
Do you want to mention the meeting we had with the police, or do you want to save it?
Yeah, I was hoping to consolidate. We did have not a full committee meeting, but we did have a smaller meeting with myself, Scott, and representatives from the police department, the chief, our new captain, we still call Officer Joe. I've got to get used to calling him Captain Corbello.
Captain Joe?
Yeah.
No, Captain Corbello. Yeah. That doesn't have the same ring.
Yes, and Officer McNamara, our new youth officer. And so we were able to discuss the addendum items that we created for the memorandum of agreement with law enforcement, that required document that we do have to sign as a school body, but we, as Highland Parkers that we are, created an addenda list that we want to attach to that document, just expressing some of the items that we felt we needed some personalized input on. And, we were able to come to really a clear consensus, I think, with law enforcement on most of the agenda items. And there's one that we're working through and we're going to be discussing at our next meeting. And that one has to do with
surveillance equipment in our schools and law enforcement's access to the streaming of that surveillance in our schools. So obviously that's an issue that we want to discuss and really flesh out a bit and see what the limitations are going to be around that kind of access. So yes, I look forward to being able to report on that at our next meeting. We also are going to be talking about some of our discipline and suspension data, I think, and doing some analyses there. So a lot we have on the agenda. Looking forward to that.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, if there are any comments about equity and excellence? All right, I think I'm doing the right thing now if we move on to public comment. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. Board policies 164 and 167 establish and regulate the right of the public to participate in public meetings. If you'd like to make a public comment, please come to the podium. Please write down your name and address. Unless you're a student, you can just say student. And please let us know who you are. Excuse me? Oh, state your name, please. Oh, yes, also state your name out loud, please, for the record.
Hello, my name is Robert Holtzapfel. I live at 431 South 7th Avenue. I'm working to organize your Special Education Parents Advisory Council.
Oh, good. Wonderful.
Again. I'm finding it exceedingly difficult. Your Director of Special Services, Ms. Boudin, has been excellent. She's done everything I've asked her to do. We've sent out mailings, but we've gotten practically no response. Connecting with these families is challenging because these children need more support in school. They also need more support at home. It's difficult to get the laundry done, let alone volunteer your time.
Could you raise up the microphone a little bit for us?
Certainly, Rob.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I bounced an idea off of Dr. Taylor, and I'd like to share it with you. What we need is you hire coaches for many things in the district. The Special Education Parents Advisory Council needs a coach.
Huh.
I need you guys to come up with a stipend of like $2,000 to hire somebody inside the district who can work with the Special Education Parents Advisory Council. I would need this person just to administer a Facebook page. More importantly, to establish an email list of all the parents who have special needs children. Last week I got 17 emails from the district. I can't say that I read them all. If you're in the special needs family, it gets even more challenging. I would like to be able to send emails to these families directly from our group. I serve on the board of the Autism Center for Excellence. I have a symposium on job training for transitioning into adulthood that I would love to be able to share directly with these parents, but I have no real way of doing it other than asking Susie to send out a blast email, which I know won't be effective.
I love that idea. I can't speak to how much money we have, but Scott, is that something that...
We have money for things like that.
Yeah.
I would just argue, we have a $37 million budget. And on the other hand, we've cut full programs. But for numbers like $1,000 or $2,000, we have money.
I would think.
We do. And this sounds like a great idea.
It does.
It's very hard to get people, I should tell you, Rob, to anything. We did budget hearings to all the PTOs, 2 people combined, and anyone else who wanted to come. 2 people showed up at Irving. It was very, very discouraging. Not that we had good news, but we had news. and it's hard for people now. It's very, very hard for people, and I know harder for families with special ed children. But we have $2,000 to do something like this.
Someone who could maybe make phone calls too. I know we all get a lot of emails, but something that really I knew spoke to my kid.
I need somebody who has access to the
Yes.
contact information on the other side. I know there's privacy concerns, that information can't be given to me.
Right.
Or I could organize it myself. But
a coach,
an aide, somebody who could be trusted to just develop that list of emails. So, you know, when I have something that's really great for special needs parents, a POAC event, you know, whatever, that I can specifically target that to them.
Right.
I'm also concerned that there's families that, you know, English is a second language that we're not reaching at all.
Right. And maybe with that coach could be responsible for farming out the information to our translators.
Yeah.
Or translating it herself or himself. That sounds fantastic. What's the best way to go about considering this idea, Scott?
I don't want to comment on it now.
No,
I think it's a fantastic idea, but as Mark pointed out, I think we have to wait till the budget process unfolds, right? And recognize that we're not talking about a lot of money, likely.
Correct.
It's based on an algorithm that the HPEA came up with, hours and all.
Do we need to wait until after the current year budget is?
Yeah,
Can we
that
do
w-
something soon about this? Like, I don't want to, do we need to wait until finalization of the budget to decide whether we can do this? Or is this the kind of smaller item? I don't want to comment on amounts, but where you could
think
work
one of-
with Keith to.
I think one of the next steps would be for me to approach Mr. Presti about this during one of our biweekly meetings.
That sounds great.
Because it would be driven by the HPEA, it would be a Schedule B position.
Of course, the details would need to be worked
But
out.
And then
Scott-
make sure I have it somewhere.
Scott, it might be an HPAA initiative. In other words, a very small time for an administrator in the district. I mean, we have two people on the special ed department who are in the HPAA. I don't think this takes a lot of, I mean, I don't know the full proposal, but perhaps it doesn't take an awful lot of time. And it could be a stipend that you talk to Mr. Lassiter about.
Well,
I leave it to you. I'm
Yeah,
just
that's-
saying, let's
yeah.
think out of the box.
Yeah, we'll
on how to get
discuss
this
it. I mean,
going.
publicly, I'll say that we don't currently provide any stipends, as far as I know, to our administrators. So I'm not sure if it's a practice we want to start. Privately, we can talk about other options. But at the very least, you know what I'll also do besides talk to Keith? Lay some groundwork. Speak to Ms. Budine and get a sense of what the role would be.
I would like this person to have a relationship with Ms. Budine, to be familiar with like all the different aspects of the special needs community. I mean, it occurs to me, I only know my sons really well. We're going to have a fundraiser at Pino's on the 9th to raise money for the GLOW program.
Oh, wonderful.
You know, come hear some music, give us money.
On the 9th of November? Is that?
November, yes.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Great.
But the sooner the better.
Scott, would you be willing to report back to us about this proposal at our next meeting?
Yeah, I will. I'm just not sure when. I think it's going to take some time. So I don't want to tell you when, but I think it's something that'll come out through the budget process, no?
Oh, the budget process, I hear like spring. Isn't the budget process kind of like in the spring?
Well, I mean,
and this needs to happen very soon.
You can't just add this position.
No, I know. But I mean, it does seem to me like this is the kind of thing where like, I don't know, Mark is chair of negotiations.
Yeah,
Isn't this the
I
kind
think-
of thing that could happen in a month? If we decided to do it.
I think that you would
Okay.
have support from abroad. I don't want to speak on behalf of all of this group other than myself, but I think there would be support to try to jumpstart something.
That's been necessary for a long time, I
Yeah.
think.
Seems like it's a priority, and I think you'd get support, Scott.
Maybe we could at least have an update at our next meeting about where the process is. Not revealing any confidential details, but, you know, we're speaking about it. We have running into some roadblocks, or we're not running into some roadblocks.
I guess I need clarification. What exactly do you want?
He's proposing a coach position,
Well,
some
I
sort of
understand the position,
some
yeah.
sort of stipend position. I mean, ideally, I would like this to get going. I would like you to come back to us with a proposal soon. But I hear you saying that we need time. But perhaps at the next meeting, you could tell us what has been done. Our next meeting is what? 3 weeks from now? 2 weeks? November 11th. Do you think by November 11th you could give us a progress report?
Okay. I mean, I don't think I'll have much to report at that time, but I can give you what I can come up with. I mean, you know what? I think it's best that I speak with Bob and get a better sense on what he's thinking of this position would be, and then talk about the feasibility of it. Maybe I can come up with a proposal that would show the board what cost we're looking at.
Well, that would be
Might that
great.
help?
Yeah, okay.
I just need clarification on what the expectation of
I mean,
it
this is a position, this is, for years now, we've been unable to sort of get CPAC going, and one of the reasons is that CPAC leaders can't have access to the email list. So I know this happened like several years ago. I want to send out an email to all my, special needs parent colleagues, but there's no way for me to get the list. So this would be, one thing this position could do would be have access, FERPA protected access to the list, and could do that.
And Ann,
I'll do my best to come up with something that I can share.
Wonderful. What were you going to say?
I was going to say another benefit this would add continuity to CPAC.
Yes.
That once this was established, it would be like, go on an ongoing basis. That CPAC would carry on from year to year, as parents aged out, their kids aged out,
Rather than this like chunk of thing every year.
Instead of
Monique, I
inventing the
interrupted
wheel.
you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I think you addressed my question as to what we could expect next, and I think it makes sense even just what the proposal is, and yeah, I think we can get that much for the next
Scott,
program.
it may not even be something that you personally need to do. To me, it would be something that perhaps you just hand to Susie.
Oh, no, absolutely.
I don't need to give her more work, but it may be something
I'm not
that
afraid
she
of
would
work,
just,
that's for
she
sure,
would
but
just take
I
care
just
of
need
that.
to know exactly what we're looking at. But I have a handle on it, so I think we could move forward.
As the board has a rep, to this CPAC, it was Ruth now.
Right.
The district could have a rep to CPAC, and that person, if nothing else, has access to the email addresses. And it might be as simple as that, just making sure that and the continuity, because, it comes and goes. So if you could talk to Susie, I concur with what Ann said. I got it. Good, thanks.
Thank you for stepping up with this. We miss our CPAC.
You're welcome. I'm happy to come back and answer any questions.
I'm sure you'll be asked to. Thank you.
Thank you all for your service.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I
Thank
would
you,
love
Scott.
to see, I've been in other districts in which CPAC has been 20, 30, 40 parents strong.
Sure.
So it would be nice if we had some kind of advocacy group, even whether it's a formal CPAC or just a special ed advocacy group.
It's come and gone, and when I first was in this district, it was much stronger.
I think it sounds to me like it might not be strong because of the busy life that everyone is leading, and it might need some more focus. So I hope that we can provide that.
Someone who's compensated, who gets money to do it. So.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
yes.
Some simple structure. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, more public comments? Surely someone has a public comment. Dr. Scott. Don't feel obliged, but. Okay, feel obliged. Thank you for coming.
So I guess I do feel obliged, since I've been at the last two meetings, to follow up. So I just wanted to say it's fantastic news to hear that Mr. Martino is staying. And I also would say that I'm happy that we've found a way to get to 40-minute periods for music. I think that does send a signal, possibly some of that signal maybe helped Mr. Martino stay, I don't know, that there's going to be support for the music program in the future. So that's great. Now the criticism part, which is, I have some concerns in that we got the letter this morning, and the 40-minute periods for music still have the strange overlap situation. So if I understand it correctly, my 7th grader is going to come into band after band has already been going for 20 minutes for the 6th and 8th graders? No.
I think your student will be, I forget which is 6th, 7th, and 8th, but your student may be leaving the class before band a little early or coming a little late to the class.
Well, the schedules that we were sent showed, I believe, 6th and 8th grade starting at 12:32 and 7th grade starting at 12:52.
I'm sorry, I don't know the specifics, but I mean, and it may be the letter was incorrect, or, I just don't know. But the idea was for time to be taken from the other periods, not from music. Nobody should be coming into music late. People should be leaving a private class early or coming to a subsequent class.
I don't know if you have the slides, but I'm quite sure that the sample schedules that we were sent, oh, my phone's over there, had the 6th and 8th grade periods from starting at 12:32 and the 7th grade one starting at 12:52. That's what it looked like to me.
Can I just clarify? Maybe it's something, just because the periods overlap doesn't mean that they'll all be in the same room and they'll be interchanged, or?
Oh, no, they'll be
Right.
separate rooms, of course. But I need to better understand your question, unless somebody else could fill in the question.
So you're telling me the schedules you got suggest that people will be leaving band early and coming to band late?
That's what it looked like. Maybe I.
That is not the intention, so I wonder, bye-bye, thanks for coming. I wonder if there could have been a mistake in the letter, or if the letter was unclear, or if you misunderstood the letter, respectfully.
Do you have the,
Did the schedule-
sample schedule? Do you have the letter available to just
But did the
project?
schedule I showed you, that schedule that I showed you is
That
the
was
schedule that kids will follow?
Maybe you could show us the letter.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that
Somebody
right
have the
now.
letter? Yeah, okay.
Somebody have the letter?
I think we have it in our inbox, actually.
Oh, we did. My computer lost power. So what's going to happen is people will be in gym class, and some of those people in gym class will leave early to go to band. And
That's
they'll stay in
correct.
band throughout the OWL period.
That's correct.
Other kids will come to band, and they will stay in band until they will stay in band past the beginning of the next period, and they will come late to that subsequent period.
Let me see.
So there will be some classes that some students leave early, and there'll be some classes that students come late. Those classes will be exclusively gym, lunch, and some of the cycle classes. There will be no core subjects that are affected.
No, what I'm saying is there's going to be, here's the letter, just a sec.
So looking at,
Here, there's this.
oh, what? Just,
Yeah, there's this. So they sent sample schedules, okay? So this is the letter from Miss O, right? And it says the schedule for our music students is below. And then it gives the schedule for the 8th grade music students, which shows the new OWL period as 12:32 to 1:12, which is 40 minutes. That's for 8th grade. Then for 7th grade, the schedule is 12:52 to 1:32. And then for 6th grade, it is 12:32 to 1:12. So my understanding is what will happen is the 6th and 8th graders will go to their class. They'll have 20 minutes of class, and then my daughter will come, because she's in 7th grade, and arrive at 12:52 after 20 minutes of band or violin or orchestra have been going on. And then the 6th and 8th graders will leave, and the 7th graders will
yeah,
be
I understand
around
your
for
question
another
now.
20 minutes.
But I don't know how the answer until I talk to Ms. Brady. So, because I'd like to, or I look at the three schedules side by side, like you're suggesting is happening. You've got it already? I'd like to clarify whether we've arranged the schedule so that each grade meets all at the same time and not the whole ensemble. So I don't have that answer, but I will follow up ASAP. If we have to, we'll even put a letter out, another follow-up letter to the middle school families to clarify.
So,
have one band teacher, so it's not like
so
Right,
that's one issue, okay? The other issue is that this does mean, right, that students are going to get basically 24-minute periods every other day in some classes. So in my daughter's case, and she's in 7th grade, that's going to come out of Makerspace. So OWL will start, she'll go to band, and then she'll miss the first part of Makerspace twice a week, or 3 times, depending on what the cycle is, and it's a 24-minute period, which, on the one hand, neither one of us is thrilled with Makerspace, so fine, but then next term when it's art, she's probably not going to be so thrilled with that. And the other thing is that there are, from the teachers, well, you have to make up the stuff you've missed because you've had less time than your peers.
Let me get clarification and then...
So what I would say is look, I think it's awesome that the emergency paramedic showed up for the music program, and that we've got 40-minute periods, and I think it's amazing that Mr. Martino is staying. But what I think we really need to be careful as we move forward is to revisit all the things that's got us here, which is we need to have a real understanding of the music program and its needs. So I know that the leadership group that you talked about that came up with this, I don't think any of the high school or middle school teachers sit on that, so I don't think they were actually involved in determining this schedule, right?
I don't know, Miss.
Are
there middle school and high school teachers on the Central Leadership Committee? I think there are. Correct?
There are high school and middle school teachers.
No,
We had
music
Mr. Presti
teachers is
involved
what
in
I
that
mean.
discussion.
Oh, music teachers.
Like
They will be part of the task force to evaluate every aspect of music for next year.
So
Right.
I think that we'll do really well as a district if we learn from this and kind of deconstruct and analyze some of the hidden things that are behind this. And I think what the band, I can't say debacle, right? My daughter was giving me a hard time. But this debacle reveals that there's kind of a two-track value system when it comes to the curriculum. So we are very much taking, in salvaging music, we're taking it out of the cycle period, the gym period, so on and so forth. And we see in the high school that we currently have band and choir and orchestra all in that A period, or the, if you don't take band, orchestra, and choir, you can sleep in period. And so I think going forward, what will be really useful is to reassess all of that and figure out how can we truly regularize the music program so it's just like any other class, and not seen as sort of some special add-on or something that needs to borrow from other classes that are somehow also seen as sort of second-class courses. And I think that would be a really useful thing to do, as I know the curriculum committee is talking about looking into schedules, so on and so forth. I think that would be well worth everyone's time and would avoid future problems. Finally, I just can't help but comment on the Middlesex education, or the Middle States education thing. We have that at Rutgers. If this district can stay away from it and not let them get your hooks into you, that would be fantastic. I so agree with Mr. Lassiter and Dr. Taylor on that. It didn't help us at Rutgers. We're sort of stuck with it, but I don't think a secondary district has to be. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. Your point is really well taken, and I know Scott does intend to go over the music program and how we've approached it from the beginning. I will say that, I mean, you're correct. There is a two-track system, and here's why. The state of New Jersey requires us to teach certain things, so when we don't have funding, the things that are not required tend to get cut. That is life when the state owes you $6 million. I will also say there are several reasons. One reason we were not simply able to adopt the suggestion that we just go back to last year and have 43-minute periods for everything was because we have issues with teachers' contracts. If teachers teach more than 5 periods per day, no, I just wanted to let you know. To go back to the schedule from last year, I believe we calculated out it would have cost $100,000, más o menos.
Probably more.
Probably more, because it would require teachers to teach a certain number of courses that count as 6th-period classes. Now, OWL time does not count as a 6th-period class. Other classes do count as a 6th-period class. And when a teacher teaches a 6th-period class, they receive, under the contract, an additional you can come back up if you want, an additional 1/5 of their salary. So that adds up very quickly. We were not able to, in a cost-effective manner, just restore everything the way we wanted to. So it's not just that we are crazy and stubborn and don't want to change the schedule too much. We couldn't afford it. And you know, when the budget comes around again, we'll do our traditional round of presentations indicating how little money we have. But that was the problem right now for immediately restoring the schedule. I will also say there are a number of other fixes that we are working on. We, I believe, are committed. I think the administration is committed to getting started more quickly, or start earlier in the season, as you said, with the schedules, so that we won't have sort of a last-minute set of problems arise.
Absolutely.
If we have problems, they'll arise earlier, and then we can address them if possible. That's one thing we're going to be doing. The other thing, of course, is involving the music teachers early on, in this committee work and just more in general.
And I want to add that we're giving our, and we should have been doing this for eons, our music teachers more ownership over the leadership team search process.
Right.
Right now, I have all 3 music teachers from the middle high school on the interview committees for the new middle school principal.
Wonderful.
It starts in 2 weeks. I'm going to follow up by email to the board Scott's valid question about the overlapping of 3 grades into the music program, and then I'll follow up with Rob personally. Or I'll have somebody from the middle school follow up with you.
Mark, go ahead. Mark, let Mark go ahead for a second.
Something that came up that you just commented on a moment ago, Rob, which I didn't want to go into all the details, but on the committee is a music teacher. He happens to be the HPEA president, Keith Presti, and we were all discussing this, and one of the things that did come up for discussion was the A period, and the issue of the A period versus traditional pullout, which is done in most high schools in the county and in the state, and that's going to be on the agenda as well.
Okay.
And there's pros and cons, and decisions were made based on keeping the kids in the academic classes, but that may be a different outcome as part of this music review for this task force.
Thank you. Dr. Scott?
So thank you very much for actually giving the reason why we couldn't do the simpler thing, and also for the $100,000 figure. So
it might be more.
I thought that perhaps there would be a budgetary reason. Okay, so it's good to have that confirmed. So there's been just something that doesn't entirely add up to me. So the OWL period is 20 minutes, right? And that's being technically supervised by teachers?
It's a duty period, I believe, which falls under...
OWL period?
Yes.
Yes.
It falls under a different contractual...
It's not a teaching period, it's a duty period.
A different contractual category.
And so there's just a duty period can be only so long, or?
20 minutes.
Yes, they can only be so long, and of course they can't involve instruction.
It's 20 minutes, and it's no extra pay.
And the teachers are there, they can participate more if they want, but their job is to make sure that things are sort of moving smoothly along.
And all the teachers are basically assigned this duty period, so it's not like you could do a double duty period, like if one teacher the first 20 and then another the second?
We investigated that. You could do multiple duty periods, and then there would be no teachers left over to do the other duties that teachers do. And then you would have to hire people to do those duty periods, and it might not cost $120,000. It might only cost $110,000.
And that teachers can't do an infinite number of duty periods. Do they just have one duty period under the contract? There's a maximum number a teacher can do before additional compensation is owed.
And if it's effectively a study hall, it has to be a teacher. It can't be a para or something.
That is what we have. Scott, is that correct, that for a study hall to occur, that counts as a 6th period?
Correct, which is one reason why study hall wasn't as effective as we hoped it would be. It wasn't like an instructional support period. It was just a duty. It was like a supervision period.
It does sound counterintuitive that OWL would be merely a duty period and study hall would be an instructional period, but that is in fact the way the contract is constructed? Yeah.
And a part of the reason that the study hall periods last year were eliminated in favor of the OWL initially was, why are the kids in a 43-minute period mostly not doing anything? And why are we doing this? And then it, I think, dawned on people that we were paying all this money for that wasn't even budgeted. We didn't budget it, but then it comes up during the year and we have to pay for it. So the decision was made early on in budget time to eliminate those and replace it with something, but that's down at the school level. I mean, the board, the finance committee certainly didn't review that. And that was the 20-minute duty period.
Well, Mark, be mindful that we've been fighting for a few years now, ever since we introduced restorative practices, to find regular community building circle time.
And the RP,
this was
that's right.
Just a great confluence of factors that came together at once.
I'll also say that I know there are many parents, myself included, who really miss independent study. I mean, that was great for my kids, but the input from our administrators was for the majority of students, the majority of teachers, it wasn't working out in the way it was hoped for. So as much as I personally was like, oh, come on, Ms. Brady, can we have independent study back? You know, it wasn't about my kids' experience.
But lunch is more than 20 minutes, and it's not a duty period. That's supervised in some
Lunch is
other-
also a duty period, I believe. Dr. Scott, I don't know how,
Okay.
why lunch is a duty period, but a 40-minute hour period wouldn't be a duty period. But I have to trust
all
our
right.
administrators on this.
Thank you. A lot of this has to do with the contract,
I think the
so
lunches
I-
are overlap duty periods.
Lunches are overlap duty periods? Oh, maybe so somebody's there 20 minutes and somebody's there 20 more minutes or something. I don't know. We wanted to just go back to last year, you know. That made the most sense. But it was impossible, we felt. Hello.
Hi, I'm Sarah Heimowitz, 216 Graham Street.
Could you lower the microphone a bit?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah, just a quick comment. I would, I guess I would check on whether study hall, the independent study, is a duty or not, because as I understand, it was a duty period, so the 40-minute study hall, which I think was used for electives and music, was a duty. So because the teachers weren't teaching.
It wasn't an instructional period, that I know.
Right. So it was, but it wasn't paid, as I understand, as like that sixth period.
So if we,
That other, you know, that instructional 6 periods.
I hear you
require.
suggesting that perhaps you have some information about this that the rest of us don't have. Perhaps, you know, from...
I'm not
No,
sure.
no, I
I'm
know,
just saying
but...
that's what I understood.
So, I mean, should we...
When I asked the administration, I was told that we were paying last year, and they could point to where we were paying for the 6 periods for a number of teachers, and they seemed to coincide with the study hall periods.
Maybe it wasn't the study hall.
Electives were taught during.
Ah.
Some electives were taught during the study hall.
Yes, that's true, too.
Yes,
But I
we
think
lost
for
some electives, yes.
That's my understanding, but I think for study halls where an elective wasn't actually being taught, so there wasn't
I
instruction,
see.
just monitoring, I think
Oh,
that
so
a
it was
duty.
multiple duty periods, and maybe they ran out of duty periods and had to put people into duty periods and pay those people because they didn't have enough.
Or it was the
Very-
electives that were costing the money, and now we don't have the same electives anymore in the middle school. There's no, you know,
That's
there's no creative writing, there's no drama.
is
So
the-
maybe that was what cost us the money, and I
Is the
misspoke.
intent to try to bring back the study hall period? I'm trying to figure out the
Well,
Well, some people like it, and some people would like to have drama and creative writing and all those things.
I mean, I'm not really sure. I don't know what the feeling is, even among the teachers, about study hall or what parents see. But last year, that's how the music program was able to work, as I understand, without having to draw kids from the classes before or after
Yes.
and make it less. So that might be an option to go back to the schedule last year, and it actually wouldn't increase the cost because the cost was from, I think, from the electives that we no longer have. But
I
going back to
see.
study halls might not change the cost.
So if we went back to last year, but we didn't have the non-study hall electives, everyone was either in music or study hall, perhaps that would not
That's
cost.
my understanding, but I,
Well, that's,
don't rely on me.
I mean, Mark is saying that what he learned was not, that would not work, but
Principals who were at the meeting definitively said, and I can't decipher, you know, what the deep meaning is. You would need to hire people to cover duties and 6 periods, and by the time you're done, we had numbers that were between $100,000 and $200,000.
Yeah, I don't think that that's true. I think, so one way of looking at it is if you took this owl period that's now 20 minutes, but you go back to the schedule last year and do the owl period during what we called study hall. So there's a 40-minute study hall that has maybe a small, or, you know, an owl component in it.
We
and then
can
do
see if that's
music then.
financially feasible once we begin the budget process. But
so we
one
had
of
a 40-minute owl period, in other words,
Right, yeah,
essentially.
exactly. It's just that it was a study hall and not called the owl.
It'd be more hourly, less study hall-y, or more study hall-y, less.
Yeah.
So, okay, but so your understanding was we couldn't just do that. We couldn't have 40-minute owl/study periods.
That's what we were told.
Okay.
Can we get confirmation on that, though, specifically?
Can we get confirmation of that, Scott, just at least internally?
Whether it's a duty period or
Or whether, what the, let's be sure that we understand correctly that if we were to, make OWL 40 minutes and increase the number of periods in the day so that OWL and music were interchangeable, that would in fact cost us between $100,000 and $200,000. In other words, let's make OWL 40 minutes, let's make all the other periods commensurately shorter, so we go back to having 9
And basically
full
revert
periods.
back to last year's model.
Yes, but without the electives. No creative writing, no drama, none of that fun stuff, none of that.
Would it be, I mean, we're talking about 2020, 2021 schedule, I assume?
Well, any schedule. I mean, it could be for this year, it could be for next year, it could be just in general.
If the board wouldn't mind, I'd like to, can I parallel that follow-up with the budget process? I mean, because we're kind of, it feels like we're going in all kinds of
I
directions.
don't think it's that complicated. All we need to know is, were the electives being offered as well as study hall during that period, the 6th period in question, or not?
Okay, the answer is yes, they were, but the cost I don't know exactly. The answer is yes, we ran electives against the music, and that's how we kept the music where it was last year at 42 minutes.
What if we got rid of the electives and just offered study hall to everybody who was not in music, or OWL?
It was one of the options.
When I asked the question, what I was told was you would have multiple duty periods in those 43 minutes, and you would have no teachers. Every teacher would be used up in that 6th period, in that period,
chunk of time.
And then you would have no teachers to do duty periods at lunch or any other time of the day, and someone would have to be hired to do it. And you're talking about 16 6th periods, or 14 6th periods.
Or 14
Right,
duty
that's
periods,
exactly.
or some chunks
large
of time.
numbers.
So we've
and
only-
the numbers are in the over 100,000. Not to mention, in some cases, you would be at 43 minutes of not study hall, or for something, and you'd have more 6th periods.
Well,
and
and
that
don't
has
forget-
killed us every year.
We were also running the BSI program, the Basic Skills Program. These are all things that Mrs. Osemier added on to the schedule when she came on board, partly
Right.
because she wanted to provide that remedial support, and also because she wanted to provide electives. When I came here, we weren't offering electives in the middle school. So, yeah, it did add money to the budget.
Well, it added unbudgeted money to the budget because the Finance Committee didn't know at the time, wasn't presented that we were doing these 6 periods. So come along September, October, November, we were told, we didn't budget this and we didn't discuss it, but this elective program was put in after the budget was passed, and we needed an extra 92,000 or 100 and whatever thousand, and that got us kind of upset given our situation. But the duty periods clearly was stated, multiple duty periods. We would have no one to do any other duty periods that they're currently doing, and we would have to hire people for those. And then Mike Lassiter started doing back of the envelopes in the room. Other people were doing back of the envelopes, and it came to a lot of money.
I see. So perhaps I misspoke when I said it was a 6-period concern. Perhaps the consideration was given to going back to last year's schedule, getting rid of the electives, just having study OWL period for those who are not in music. But even that would be exceedingly expensive because of the extra duty periods we would need to hire someone
would
for.
have to be paid for.
Okay.
Because there would be no teachers left to do the
I
duty
see.
periods they were already assigned to.
So I apologize for misrepresenting what study hall was.
I didn't want to talk about it because it's
no,
so
this
damn
is.
complicated.
I'm glad you're more aware of what this is.
And
So
I
that-
didn't write it up because it's so complicated, so not so much your fault,
Well,
but it is what it is. There was a significant money number against it.
But this was explicitly considered, is what you, so,
I had
in other words,
numbers
right.
in front of me, and I concurred with those numbers. So
And that seems to have been based on a correct assumption of, not my
and
assumption.
It is a debacle, and we have to fix it. And this seemed the best way to fix it. And we have to fix it for real, for next year, and get the high school and middle school schedules to be more consistent with each other. So it's easier to schedule the teachers who go between the schools. By the way, everyone, that's another problem. You have a teacher in one school
Right.
who's teaches in the other school, and the periods don't match up, and then what do you do about the teachers? That's a problem. The equipment is a problem. The A period is a problem. And as Scott suggested, and I concur, and Keith concurs, and I'd say everyone in the room concurred, we need somebody to spend significant time reviewing all of these things so we do a proper job of music, because it
Okay.
is important.
All right.
With making that and art and creative writing a priority rather than a victim to 6 periods.
I couldn't agree.
Well,
I couldn't
no, we
agree
all
more.
agree.
You just have
I-
to plan it properly, and I don't feel like it's so much a victim, but if it's planned properly, and it's complicated, but if it's planned properly, and the other suggestion of the electives, having the students put what they want as elective, and not go directly to counting without going through guidance. So we know what electives to do. That's another good suggestion. But there's a number of issues we have to solve, and it is around mostly the courses that aren't required by the state, which tend to get less energy when we're so hard pressed to pay for things.
Right. Because I know the original middle school scheduling change, part of the initiative there was to eliminate 6 periods.
Correct.
And then the following year, one of the accolades of the program was a change to the high school schedule was the addition of elective periods, and having those cycle classes. So can we just tracking back for a second? Is that where we had that kind of like all of a sudden it's like the September, October, November you were saying where it's like, oh wait, we need this additional money? Was it sort of like somewhere in that second year of the middle school schedule? Or like maybe in the first?
My first year, which is 4 years ago, but when I became finance chair, which I had done 5 or 6 times in the 1980s and 90s, which I've experienced that first year I heard about these 6 periods, and sure enough, we did our budget, we got into September, October, and it wasn't any one specific thing, but all of a sudden there was 6 periods, and we have to pay for them, and we didn't plan for them because we don't have the coverage. And it had to do with shifting professional staff. It had to do with enrollments changing. It had to do with all sorts of things, and many of which aren't even under our control when we pass a budget in May. We pass the budget, and then it's September, and the number of students has changed, or a teacher leaves, or a few teachers leave. It's very, very difficult in a district this size, and with our underfunding, it's very, very difficult to plan against 1 or 2 or 3 contingencies that occur, so that we felt almost like a family moves in, or a few families move in, and they're special ed students, and we didn't plan for them, and they go out of district, and each one of them costs us $100,000. And what do we do now? Or the pre-K comes along, and the hospitals tell us after evaluating the 4-year-olds, you're getting 4 new pre-K special ed classrooms, so that the finance committee goes to Irving to check out what's really going on in those classrooms. Do we need another classroom? And a classroom like that with a special ed teacher and perhaps 2 paraprofessionals, that might cost the district $200,000. It wasn't planned. We didn't budget it. So we're hit with that all the time, and this is a victim in the same way to that. On the other hand, the planning on this was done on this music, along with the OWL, was done very poorly, and I'm not overjoyed that, among others, that the board had to learn also, as the community learned, that we have 20-minute music periods. That was very disheartening. But we're trying to fix it, and let's try to fix it next year to be done earlier and better.
And more sustainably.
And
Yeah.
I'll be quiet now.
Yeah. No,
Very
so
frustrating.
So we'll get more information about the staggered band times. Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, and I am hearing that when this committee goes to work about next year's music schedule, we're going to find out for absolute gosh darn sure about running study halls against music, and whether those study halls might be double duty periods or what they count as.
I expect by May I should be able to report to the board,
Okay.
with the help of the principals, what the schedule will look like for 2020, 2021.
Okay, and hopefully finance will be putting in information about that beforehand.
We have to solve a lot of
'Cause-
problems
right.
in this, because this has come up, I mean, a year ago, we discussed the instruments
Right.
in finance, the state of the instruments, and that was disheartening. You know, learning what we needed to do and the money we didn't have to do it properly. We've got to do, we have to do something more organized to deal with this set of problems.
Right. I'm glad we
have
have-
to do with schedules. And music is particularly difficult. If you don't know, the music teachers all report to the high school because we have music teachers that are all specialists, you know, choir or band or orchestra. And so how do you manage those teachers who are actually going into two schools?
Right.
It's a very complex, difficult problem, which maybe it shouldn't be.
But this year, upcoming new planning process. All right. Wonderful. Any more comments? And then we'll go on to our vote. All right. Let's go for it. We're going to do our board action items. I'm going to try to get the sequence right. Let's begin with curriculum and instruction. Michelle, would you like to move some items for us?
Yes, I would. I would like to.
You need the...
I got one.
You got it. Okay, good.
I know. I would like to move items number 1 through 3, please.
Is there a second?
Second.
May we have a roll call, please, Linda?
Ms. Byer? I'm sorry. Ms. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden Nicola?
Yes.
Mr. Roslevich?
Yes.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to finance. Mark, would you like to move some items for us?
Yes, I'd like to move items 1 through 13.
Is there a second?
Second.
May we have a roll call, please? That was either Rob Magaziner or Michelle.
Ms. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden Nicola?
Yes.
Mr. Roslevich?
Abstain on 11, yes on the remainder.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to personnel. I would like to move numbers 1 through 51 under personnel with a couple of exceptions. I'd like to move that we strike number 6. And number 22 is crossed out. I would like to move to strike number 22. Is there a second?
Second.
May we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden Nicola?
Yes.
Mr. Roslevich?
I'd like to vote no on 9, 31 through 35, and 50, and yes on the remainder.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
Policies and regulations. Mark, would you like to move items for
Yes,
us?
I will. Oh, I just need to move number 1.
Ah, beautiful. Is there a second?
Yay!
Would anybody else like to second number 1?
Second.
Wonderful. May we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden Nicola?
Yes.
Mr. Roslevich?
Yes.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
And there are no items for equity, am I correct, Monique?
Yes, nothing.
Okay, we'll go on to our board liaison reports. Let's power through these. Scott, do you have a report from Wendy Yang?
I
on-
don't. I do not, nor do I have a report for the Municipal Alliance. They haven't met yet.
Okay, okay. Borough of Public Information, Mr. Krieger.
No
Highland Park-
report on, I have no report on B, C, or M.
Or M. Okay. D, Highland Park Educational Foundation, Mr. Magaziner.
Okay. So the Ed Foundation will be meeting tomorrow evening, but I can tell you that I guess I missed the previous meeting, so I don't think we've talked about this, but they are doing a big fall fun festival, which is, I guess, out of the ordinary. Most years they just do a spring one and then a smaller fall fundraiser, but this one is, I guess it's Saturday, the 26th of October in the afternoon, so it's a week from Saturday. It's an Oktoberfest menu. It's at the old Hamilton School on Madison. and they are actively selling.
Wonderful. Okay, so we, hpef.org or something like
I'm
that?
not selling, but they are selling.
They are selling.
Yes.
All right. So we can go on.
Usually a lot of fun, and certainly, definitely is a good cause.
Is liquor served? Will this include the
Beer
usual-
and wine garden, food and music.
Beer. Okay. Take note, everyone. I'm not a huge fan of German food, I will admit, but the beer is good. Okay, let's see, letter E, Commission for Universal Access. Linda, I think that's actually Mr. Woodward.
Yeah, the meeting last couple of weeks ago was canceled, so.
Okay, we're moving quickly. Scott, letter F, Public Library Liaison. Will we be assigning? Okay. Have we had a chance to sit down with the library yet and sort of chat about our mutual interest in supporting our students?
Dissuaded by the library board to attend until they resolve some of the
Oh, is there another issue that's
things
pending?
that they're working through right now.
I heard there might be another issue going on.
Catch
right now.
my drift.
I do catch your drift. Yes. Do you think we should?
I've actually been reached out to by them, and they've said, "Hey, just hold off. It's not the right time."
Wonderful. Maybe we can address the same issue. Just a little light conversation on Pias for Palestine. Okay, shared services. Do we want to have somebody else sit in on those meetings? Darcy is our liaison. Is that the municipal
Shared services? We have not been. We're supposed to be meeting with Susan Welkovitz and Gail Miller. We have not had that meeting yet.
Okay.
We do have something scheduled for a few weeks from now, but when Darcy had to take a step back for a bit, we postponed.
Should we, I'm sorry, let me collect my thoughts. Did you and Darcy have a standing meeting with
Yes.
Susie and Gail?
I mean, our next one, if you'd like to attend,
Somebody
is,
to attend.
You can make a note. Wednesday, November 20th.
Okay.
Likely at Borough Hall.
Okay.
So I'll be sure to remind you a couple of days. It's ahead of it. It's 10 a.m.
Okay. Yeah, let me, okay, 10 a.m. All right. Yeah, maybe I'll try to remember to circulate something and we can make sure that one board member at least is there. I'd like to go, but if I can't, I know I'll have another volunteer. Wonderful, thank you. CPAC, Ruth Byer. I don't think CPAC is doing much. Working on that. Monique, HP POSAC.
No update there either. It's pretty quiet on that end for now. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me retract that. POSAC is working with the Zone 16 Center to host another college prep night. Yes, and I was not able, this was not discussed in a POSAC meeting, but it was arranged with one of the POSAC parents and Ashton Burrell over at the Zone 16 Center. And if you give me a minute, I will be able to report out the date on that. But
wonderful.
So this will be the second annual college night. So yeah, that's really exciting. Maybe you can come back to me and give you that.
Okay, I'll come back to you on the date. Okay, let's see. Human Relations. Yes, with more Pias for Palestine news coming up every moment. Human Relations, that is my, I'm the liaison to the Human Relations Commission. I have not been to the last few meetings. I've had conflicts. I will be going, I think it's next Wednesday. I know they've been working hard on the borough's proposed anti-Semitism resolution. There's been a lot of controversy around that, and I think in particular around the provision that specifically targets BDS. So I'm sure we'll be hearing more about that. I'm not sure if it's at the next council meeting that they're voting, that the council's voting. It's coming up soon. All right, Board of Health. Michelle, has there been a meeting?
There has been a meeting. I was not able to attend, and there is a resolution that was passed unanimously by the Board of Health on condom availability in the Highland Park High School.
Oh, and are we?
Oh, sorry. I'll speak right into the microphone. So the Board of Health met, but I was not able to attend. But I was told that it was a meeting where a resolution was passed unanimously on the condom availability in the Highland Park High School. So for about 2 months, I think, we've been going back and forth determining whether or not the high school will be using the Board of Health's gift of boxes of condoms, and where they would be available for disbursement, or if they would be available for disbursement. And I don't know what is the holdup, but that seems to be an issue with the Board of Health, and they've determined that they would push the issue by passing a resolution unanimously. So I sent it to everyone's inbox. I think everyone has. I didn't send it to the students, though. I'll send it to you, too. Last I heard, we were waiting on Mr. Lassiter.
I did respond to Anne and Michelle, not to the full board, that I've had discussions with Mr. Lassiter, and I do think that perhaps Anne and Michelle should meet with us at some point, Michelle being representative to the board, to the Health Commission, and you as acting president. There's some concerns, and I think we should discuss them about distributing, not about making them available.
Oh, what was the request for distribution? Making them available at the nurse's office or someplace was not, what did the board want us to do? I'm sorry, you sent an email and forgive me, I've forgotten what.
I don't think that they had any, in their resolution, they don't have any prescriptions about disbursement. They're talking about the fact that they should be available. So.
Okay.
I'm confused about what we should need to meet about them.
So there's actually two things we're talking about here. One, the accessibility, which I will definitely follow up with Mr. Lassiter on, then follow up with the board on.
Wonderful, thank you.
There was also, I think one of our student reps from the Health Commission approached Mr. Lassiter about distributing condoms, not making them accessible, but actually distributing.
Proactively going out.
Which is different. So let me get back to the board about accessibility.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Do you want to hear about distribution?
No.
I assume there's no real controversy about making them
I assume
available.
so too, but I don't think that's a safe assumption to make at this point because we've been discussing this since before June. We had a Board of Health meeting in June, and I proposed this at that time. And then I feel like there's just a major holdup, and I really don't understand what it is. But now you're suggesting that we should meet to discuss the concerns, and I don't even know what the concerns are, so I don't know what.
Again, about distribution, not about accessibility. I mean, I think the difference is, do we provide condoms for the kids in the nurse's office, at the teen center, which I believe at some point we did, or do we actually distribute them? Do we actually go to classes, to homerooms, and provide them to students?
I don't think anybody ever asked. I was at the Board of Health. I'm sorry to interrupt.
I guess a student did, right? Somebody.
I don't know if Teen Pep could give them out, but the nurse's office, the teen center, that's what was done in the past, and no one in the Board of Health, when I was attending, ever asked for us to distribute them, just to make them available.
Yeah, I don't think that was ever.
So if that got.
I think there's a miscommunication then from the student reps from the Board of Health and Mr. Lassiter.
Okay.
I think that's the problem.
Okay, but
Are they available now? Are condoms currently available?
I believe they are, but I can verify that after I check in about accessibility.
They're not.
Wonderful.
They're not.
They're not, okay.
This is where I start to get frustrated, and I apologize. But if it's a communication issue around one word, and we're holding it up since June, I think we are putting kids at risk. I mean, I don't really think that there is a big difference between distribution and accessibility. So maybe I'm not speaking English the way I think I am, but I don't see. I'm sorry to sound like so condescending, but I'm really, really frustrated. This has been going on since June. So I need someone to explain what the issue is.
There's a big difference between the two words.
Okay.
There is, but we should at least make them, whatever the difference is, we should at least have them available.
Yeah.
We can deal with distribution later.
The simple word, which is what we want and what the Board of Health is asking us to do, and we all look foolish, frankly,
Yes.
by not making them accessible when that's all they're asking and that's all I think we want.
And if somebody wanted distribution, let's talk about that separately, but availability, I know you'll get back to us at the next meeting, right? Scott's gonna get back to us about availability. And we should all write that down and make sure we remember to ask, because I always forget. All right. I'll send in my students. No, they're a little too young.
Oh, good.
Okay.
I went from 70 tasks to 77 within the last 2 hours.
Good. Well, a couple hundred more and you'll be golden.
What you pay me the big bucks for?
All right. Where were we? Oh, that was Board of Health. Board of Health? Any other concerns of the Board of Health? I'm sure there are, but anything we can deal with?
There is an agenda that I can read through, but I think that was the most pressing issue.
Okay. All right. Well, do you mind sharing maybe you already did share the agenda with us?
I will email it
You
to
might?
everyone.
Thank you.
Yes.
That'd be great. I always forget to do that with human relations, but usually the agenda is very vague.
Oh, no, this is not.
No, I understand that. It's different. It's a whole different animal. All right. Green Team, Mr. Roslevich, do you have a report for us?
Yes, but before I say anything about the green team, the student reps have asked me to remind everyone that on Wednesday night at 6:30 in the high school cafeteria is the financial aid night. So, anyone who, like
That's
me,
great.
is panicked.
Thank you.
They'll have some good information hopefully there that evening for parents who are looking for information about how to plan for and afford college, and any sort of grants and other financial aid that's available.
So any parent or student who's interested in financial aid for college should attend Wednesday, 6:30 p.m., high school cafeteria.
Yep.
Has a notice gone out about this from the district, do you think?
I think it's on the website.
It's on the website. I hate to suggest another push notification because as Mr. Holtzoffel told us, so many push notifications, you don't even look at them. But
We can put in an announcement.
yes, that would be great. Thank you so much. And then Scott wouldn't have to have a 78th task.
Yeah, I know it went out as an email too.
Oh, did it go out in an email? That was my question. I don't have, I do have a high school student, but he's a freshman, so.
So
If it
can
said,
you tag on to that then to get back to the date for the college prep?
oh, yes, okay. College prep meeting.
Sorry, oh no, Rob had more to report.
Well, why don't we add that on right now? Is that okay?
Because it kind of segues.
Wednesday, 6:30, financial aid.
And Thursday, October 24th, college prep workshop. Its start time is 7:30. It will be at the Zone 16 Center. And I'm assuming it'll be similar to last year's event. There will be some light refreshments available. They had a really good turnout last year for the first time doing this, and I
That's
think
great.
It was quite a productive and helpful discussion.
And the program last year was awesome.
Yeah.
I got a lot out of it.
Yeah.
And I actually know some of the terms now when my son brings them up.
And it was led by one of our Highland Park parents, Irene Max. So it was very
Oh, fantastic.
So that's at Zone 6?
At Zone 6.
October 24th, Zone 6. What time again?
7:30 p.m. Thursday, October 24th.
24th.
So good timing, right after that financial aid workshop.
Beautiful.
To a lighter, positive note about that. With college options. So.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks to you both. Okay, Rob, Green Team, lay it on us.
All right. Basically, we're talking about 2 awards that are going to be awarded to the district. One is the bronze certification as a sustainable Jersey school district, and the second one is the 2019 Green Team Collaboration Award. From going to the few meetings that I have attended, everyone there is really committed to working to become a sustainable school, each one of the schools, and it's really great to see them being recognized for this. The ceremony is October 22nd down in Atlantic City, so I think it's well merited.
Oh, that's wonderful to know. Yeah, we have really committed Green Team members. So Scott, well, I know we have some board members going to workshop. We have
I signed up for that.
1, 2, 3. Chris, I think, is going for a day. Is that right? And Scott, will some of the other Green Team members be
We
attending?
have Tracy Maiden coming.
Wonderful.
Melanie McDermott should be there as well.
Okay.
I believe one teacher from each of our other schools will be there, including Ms. Sarah.
It's the Tuesday, Scott?
Yes. Actually, I'll verify. Hold on.
Oh, fantastic. Great. All right. Well, we owe them a debt of gratitude for sure.
It's not on my calendar. I better put it on there promptly. Probably Tuesday.
Before our calendar explodes. Rob, that's pretty good news. Anything else?
Not on that.
All right. Let's see. New Jersey school boards. Darcy will not be attending the delegate assembly. Linda, I don't. Maybe I should ask actually. The delegate assembly is coming up. I've forgotten what the date was. Do you remember off the top of your head? My computer died. I'm sorry.
I had that paper last time and
Yeah,
it was on it.
I can circulate it. Let me remind myself to do it. I am not able to attend. Darcy's not able to attend, but perhaps someone else is able to attend. I will circulate the date.
Tell us the date.
Yeah, right. It's really useless without the date. This is where sometimes we have an actual resolution that we propose, and maybe we can argue in favor. We don't have a resolution ourselves this time, but there might be something interesting on the agenda. There might not be. And certainly it'd be great if someone wanted to attend. So I am going to try to remember to send that all to you guys. Okay. Rob, a delegate to Middlesex County School Boards. Anything
The
for us?
last meeting I attended was about 2 weeks ago. It was on school security. And if nothing else, it really emphasized the whole idea of restorative practices and having people in the school who kind of knew exactly what was going on, had their thumb on everything that was going on. So I can't place his name right now, but we brought him on to be, at the high school.
Mr. Harrison?
Sean, thank you. Someone like him, like how important it is to have him and Mike Lassiter and other people who know the students and have a sense of what's going on before it happens, just so they can make those inroads to avert something from happening.
Yes,
down
please.
The road. So I think we're, based on everything that was brought up in that meeting and everything that our district has been working on, I felt very optimistic coming out of it rather than saying, oh, we're behind.
That's really good to hear. So I know the safety committee meeting is coming up. That's the district committee with people from all different levels that talk about school safety. Were there materials that came out of that workshop or meeting that you wanted to share with Scott?
I have some materials, and I just have to put my hand back on it, and I'll find my notes, and I'll send it back to everyone and to Scott.
That'd be great, and maybe there's something there for the committee to address.
The meeting's Thursday, so you've got a couple of days.
Okay.
Oh, Thursday. Okay, coming right up. Okay, acting president's report. All right, we have two things on here. Board goals. Let me go to B first, new borough commissions. I haven't yet heard back from the chairs of the commissions in question, but let me at least put it out there. Oh, of course, yes, go for it. Students, would you guys like to leave and do some homework or have some fun or whatever? Thank you so much for being here, guys. Thank you. You're always welcome to stay later, but don't feel obligated. Okay, new borough commissions. So we have the Commission on Immigrant and Refugee Affairs and the Equity Commission. I'd like to have a board liaison to each of those. Is anybody willing to step up right now and commit, or not at this time?
Can we get some kind of schedule in advance to know
Yeah,
whether we can?
my darn computer is not working. I can present that at the next meeting.
I would love to. I just don't know if I can.
Does anybody have access to the borough website right now? Oh, you know what? I take that back.
If you're looking for a listing of the meetings,
A lot of,
you might not necessarily easily find it.
you know what? And actually, the new commissions aren't on there. The newish commissions, like Human Relations, it says third Wednesday every month, but I was not able to find that immediately for Equity. So let me come back to the board next week with some more helpful information.
Absolutely.
About when those meetings are.
If that's available, that would be good to make a decision. I don't want to commit unless I can.
Right, of course not. Of course not. I'm sorry. I should have had that. I think I do have it on this trusty device, which is now of no use to me. Okay, so next time, sorry about that. Board goals. What time is it? Anybody have a time?
10 o'clock.
Oh, it's 10 o'clock. Do we want to take like a 10-minute swing at the board goals? Try to finish them up next week? No?
We could.
Anybody have any, how do people feel? Let me get a sense for the,
I thought they were pretty good in the current state, for the whatever it's worth.
I haven't had a chance to look at them. I'd like to be able to spend a few minutes taking a look at them before
Excellent idea.
diving in. I'm
Maybe-
sorry to say.
That's fine. No. I'm sorry. I, of course, was supposed to email you guys the document earlier in the week, and then I had a horrible week, and that did not happen. I wonder, Scott, if you could put them up on the projector real quick so we could just sort of call attention to some things that changed. Just super quick, 5 minutes.
Good.
5 minutes?
Good.
Sounds
All right.
good.
Give me about 1 minute for
Yes,
the
of
projector to warm up. You might want to move just a bit so
Okay,
you're
so
not
that
in the
the
way.
eye is not right there? Okay. So what I did was, so while the projector warms up, what I did was, we have last year's board goals, and the various board members had some input on them. I had some input on them, so I came up with a clean document that didn't show all of our comments and arguments and all that. And here it is. So it's mostly the same as the worksheet that we had over the summer to look at, which some of us looked at, some of us didn't. I tried to make some things clearer in certain points. Let me just go over what, if you're going to look at it over the week, what has changed from this year, from this year's goals. You can see this year's goals at the end of every board agenda and also on the drive. So goal 1 has to do with the whole child. I moved the play-based curriculum issue up to number 1 because I think we need to pay attention to it this year, and none of this is written in stone. but that's why it's up there. Social emotional learn. So it's a good place, yes. Social emotional learning, number 2. That was already on there, and I think Scott maybe added some things that we were already doing. Discipline. This was on the worksheet that we had. I sort of put all the discipline things in one little set of sub-paragraphs. Mark had suggested C, 3C, eliminate out-of-school suspensions except in cases of severe transgressions. It may be that our code of conduct already does that. It may not be. I stuck it in there, and we should all, I think, look at that.
The more we see that, the better.
Yeah, the more we see it, the better.
That's what I felt. The more we see
I
it,
agree.
the better.
I agree. Yeah, even if the code of conduct already purports to cover it, it might be good to point it out. Let's see. Goal 2 has to do with equity. I don't actually know much about the Global Citizen Seal program, but Scott had added that goal of expanding it.
Well, yeah, I added the goal, but note the action step for the strategic plan. That's what G2A4 is.
Oh, action
So that
A.
came right out of the strategic plan.
I see.
I'm sorry, I had a quick.
Go for it.
I was still on goal 1,
Sorry.
4, about the continue to create curriculum that is culturally comprehensive, and just a term issue. I've never heard of culturally comprehensive use, so I was just wondering if there was a choice for that particular word as opposed to.
How about culturally responsive?
Well, right, that's the term that
I'm sorry.
I was thinking. Maybe
Yeah.
we were trying to apply with that language.
Yeah,
I
I
just wanted to make sure we were in line with.
So I should change to comprehensive?
I also wanted to change that in a significant way because I think that what we're saying here is that we are continuing to create curriculum, but what we're doing many times is trying to revise our current curriculum, not necessarily create it by adopting other inclusive curriculum. So I don't know that we need to use the word create. It sounds as if we are building it from scratch, which we really don't need to.
Could we say continue to create and revise? Because some curriculum will be new, presumably, right?
Yeah.
Like the Amistad curriculum once it comes in more forcefully.
Right, so I would say instead of that, I would say create, revise, or edit, whatever that, is something we land on. And then instead of saying culturally comprehensive, I would say culturally inclusive.
What do you think about
But I
that,
don't-
Monique? Culturally inclusive?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking for terms that we know in the education field so that I could understand exactly what we mean by it.
Yes.
Because otherwise,
It's kind of
what does culturally inclusive mean? What does culturally comprehensive mean?
It's a little too
So, whereas if you
amorphous.
say culturally responsive, you can look it up, you know what it means, there's criteria there are practices and principles that we apply to that, and I just couldn't do that with the other terminology.
Yeah.
So, I didn't know if there was a reason, Scott, or whoever, for that particular term usage, so that's why I was asking. I would personally feel more comfortable with something that we're all familiar with in the education realm when we come to talking about issues of cultural competency and sustainable cultural, what's the new one, culturally sustaining pedagogy. There are these terms that at least we recognize.
How about responsive for now? And then we'll all think about it. So culturally
I
responsive?
updated that language to reflect what Michelle and for now Monique is saying. I don't know if that works for you. Continually update.
Monique was, I think that sounds good.
Curricula to B.
But
I
that-
just changed.
I don't know why we couldn't say both. We could say culturally responsive and inclusive.
I mean, does inclusive have a well-understood meaning, culturally inclusive?
I think responsive is, to me, it's reacting to the community in district. Inclusive is more or less like a global perspective. So inclusion means understanding that there are students that are, gender fluid, like that kind of thing. Understanding that should be a part of our everyday speech. That's inclusive. Responsive is different to me.
Well, how about for now, since I promised it would be 5 minutes, could we write culturally inclusive / responsive, and then we will discuss further?
Yeah, we can discuss further. I mean, but definitely the culturally responsive does include that context of broader frameworks outside of your specific setting.
Let's do that.
So, a lot of people don't know that, because they don't use it right.
That's, yeah.
So let's go
Revisit.
back and address that. Would you mind highlighting number 4 as just to remind us that we need to discuss that? Monique's point.
Just
thank you.
above it,
Just a
three.
second. Let's get this done. Poor Scott is like, has 1,000.
Somebody highlight for me?
Highlighted
I forgot
or
where the highlight is.
make it a different color. Under where it says A with the
Well,
line. Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Oh, those are ugly colors though, Scott. Okay, fine. All right. Yes, Rob.
Just above it under 3E, can we take the research implementing homework protocols out of discipline and make it its own?
Oh. Okay, yes. Right above number 4, Scott, I misplaced letter E. I believe that was a
maybe that
Microsoft
should
Word outlining problem.
Yeah,
Yes.
maybe that should be item 5 or something rather than part of discipline.
E should be its, let's make E number 5. Does that make sense? Yes. See, E that you've highlighted, that does not have to do with discipline. I put it under discipline by mistake on the train.
So take that out, basically. And add
Stick it as number
like
5.
Okay.
Yeah, number 5. Yeah, thank you. Good point. All right. I certainly have questions about that one, like what research have we already done, yada, yada, yada. But in keeping with the 5-minute effort, let's go back to that. Thank you, Rob. But that makes it more comprehensible, certainly. Okay, goal 2. Oh, I'm sorry. Did we do, where are we? Goal 2 is the equity goal, right? Yeah. Oh, global citizenship. Okay. Oh, math. Okay, number 3, math. So we've had a lot of discussions recently on an individual basis about math detracking. Based on a number of suggestions, I am proposing a slightly narrower goal on math, rather than saying right now we are committed to detracking the entire middle school math program, which is something that I support. I do think it might behoove us to talk in more detail about the questions that Chris raised, and questions that I now have too about what happens after Math 6A for all. So I rewrote it to be a little narrower, not committing us to definitely having 7A for all, definitely having 8A for all. Instead, what we're going to continue doing is getting ready for 6A for all next year. And then we will also, in 3F, research and begin designing the sequence of math classes to follow 6A for all, which means we need to know exactly what's happening in 6A for all, the DTRAC class, and what students need to learn before they start high school. We can certainly discuss that now or later, but that is why I added those revisions. Number 4, pretty clear. Oh, yes? C. No, oh, maybe I responded incorrectly. So B, you said B and C were the same. B is supposed to be talking about grades 2 through 5, getting kids ready for Math 6A for all. And C, ready to succeed. That sounds kind of sappy, but. And that is, in fact, what they're doing.
I'll recommend something, and if you don't like it, I'll delete it. Just
It's not about deleting, I understand. So all 6th graders are ready to succeed in the redesign course, and then redesign the course itself so the kids in that grade are ready to take it.
No. Back. Letter B is about Bartle. Letter C is about the middle school. I think it's okay like it is. You could put, I'm open to suggestions, but let's not put Bartle there.
I was going to consolidate B and C.
Oh, you could consolidate them, I guess, but whatever you want. This is getting like very long and detailed, but so I know with goals like this, it's very difficult to cross the line. I'm not sure where the line is between getting too specific with our goals and being too broad. So we can discuss, but. And I know that is what we're doing right now, is we're working on a revamp of the Bartle curriculum, hoping that prepares everybody for a new Math 6A. And I know Scott is going to update us more on the math redesign program, because a lot of us have questions. I personally very supportive of math detracking, but I do want to be able to answer basic questions about it.
By the way, we have a meeting tomorrow after school for those who are coming. Just a reminder.
Is that the math
meeting.
redesign? Okay.
Is it 3 o'clock or 3:15?
3:15.
So Chris, are you able to come to that? Yay, okay. And hopefully Ruth too.
How long is it expected to go on, Scott? I have to teach at 5, so.
How long will the meeting last?
Oh, I'm still possible. 4:30, so I think you'll be fine. I'm sorry, I'm nodding that you'll be fine.
Okay, sorry.
It's only going to be about an hour and a half the most, 4:45.
It could go on for 7 hours, but let's.
You bike fast to the campus.
Fine. All right. Blah, 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 blah. Everything else I think is pretty self-explanatory, if not like worthy of more discussion, perhaps. Number 5, research alternatives to prerequisites for honors. We might have already researched alternatives. So number 5, we can talk more about. Number 6 and 7, we've talked about. I might have reworked them a little bit. Goal 3, also self-explanatory, though perhaps needs discussion. And goal 4 is the financial goal, I think that Scott added or Darcy added. Isn't there a goal 4 there?
There is a goal.
Keep scrolling. Keep scrolling.
Like
Yes,
this?
there we go.
Right there?
Yeah,
Okay.
that one. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we couldn't see it. Sorry. So I don't know. I think it's a good goal. It's a great goal. Mark says it's a good goal. So, so that's new for this year. Before, we didn't care about our financial circumstances. Apparently. We did care about our financial circumstances, but now we're explicitly adding it as a goal. So everybody, please go back, check it out. Maybe we will set aside a little bit of a longer time, half an hour maybe, to try to get this done at the next
I just
meeting.
had a quick suggestion.
Of course.
That we think about adding the goal of prioritizing scheduling as an equity issue, district-wide. Because a lot of these things that we're talking about, math, for example, detracking, other things, they become a non-issue when we streamline our schedule.
That is a really good point. Scott, could you put down perhaps like goal 2, under goal 2, number 8? Goal 2, equity. I just want to put in a note for next time. So goal 2 has 1, 2, 3, math.
I think scheduling would be its own goal, if that's what you're looking for.
Oh, okay, I don't care where you put it. Can you just put a note in there somewhere like consider scheduling goal?
Yeah, I don't,
Please?
yeah, I will. I'm just wondering if,
I don't know.
well, you know what? You could fit under goal 1, a focus on the whole child.
It definitely speaks to detracking too, and part of our tracking issue is that once you're tracked into, the schedule is not flexible enough to allow you to move between tracks.
Right.
If I'm in advanced English, then it's hard for me to get into non-advanced math.
Make it its own goal.
Sure, that's fine.
I think
Absolutely.
Does that just go under goal 2, the equity goal?
I think it's a goal 2 issue, but I think that, I mean,
could-
we
I
can
could-
discuss where to put it later. I just think that it is a major component to equity, to making sure that we don't have inequalities just baked into the cake.
I tend to agree, but for now, rather than get into a lengthy discussion, how about if you just put at the end, discuss scheduling goal, particularly as relevant to equity.
At the next meeting? Or
Yeah, for us to do at the next meeting.
for the next board meeting?
We need a placeholder. Could you just write something there to
Okay.
placeholder?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Scheduling.
I'll add it as a comment.
Yeah, yeah, whatever, just to remind us that we want to have a goal
Right.
or a sub-goal or something related to scheduling.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. Would anybody like to engage in further discussion tonight, or should we put this off? All right. Where are we? Where is it? Gotta get this done, guys. November, we have no goals. We're goalless.
Oh, we have.
We're not goalless. We have our prior goals and our goals that we obviously all share. Okay, new borough commissioners, old business, update. Seth, that's my child, Seth. You're Scott. Update about central leadership team discussion.
Yeah, just a quick note on the other discussion we had as a leadership team. We examined the data on employee retention. Didn't come up with any conclusions, but I do want the board, the community to know that we are taking a good look at any trends between now and the last couple of years. Keith Presti and I met last Thursday, and we played with the idea of me digging up even more data to go back into history further beyond the 3 years. So I might present that at the next central leadership team meeting. That's all. I just wanted to make sure that the conversation's alive on that
Yeah,
issue.
thank you. I appreciate that because this is one of these priorities we want to repeatedly just at least allude to. Thank you. Okay, is there any new business? Come on. Okay, 16, public comment. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. Board policies 164 and 167 establish and regulate the right of the public to participate in public meetings. Would anybody like to approach the podium? No, please. Okay, all right. Nope. No, we welcome public comment. We welcome public comment. So may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yay, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Please look at the goals. If you have goal comments, give them to me.
No, I know, I just.